Chapter 36:19. The snow has stopped. At the foot of Mount Three Purities, both human and outsider cultivators noticed that the heavy snowfall had suddenly stopped. Everyone's eyes were filled with bewilderment. They had no idea what the situation on Mount Sanqing was like. Ever since Zhuo Wen's blight tribulation descended, the entire Sanqing mountain seemed to have formed a terrifying domain. Everyone's divine sense could not enter Sanqing mountain at all, so naturally, they could not see the battle between Zhuo Wen and Bing Hui. Even though the snow had stopped, their spiritual sense was still blocked outside Mount Sanqing. They could only look into the distance with their naked eyes. However, Mount Sanqing was extremely high. No matter how strong their cultivation was and how much eyesight surpassed that of mortals, they still couldn't clearly see the battle at the peak of the mountain. The Black King's eyes flashed. The snow was a manifestation of Bing Hui's power. From the beginning of the battle to the climax, the snow had been falling on Mount Sanqing. Now that it had suddenly stopped, he knew that something had happened to Bing Hui. The ancestors of the Nine-Tailed Fox clan, Moon Wolf clan, and Giant Turtle clan were uneasy. Their thoughts were similar to the Black King's. The snow had stopped too abruptly, so it was hard for them not to think negatively. "Someone's coming down," someone in the crowd suddenly shouted, pointing at the stone steps above. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Numerous gazes landed on the stone steps in unison. They really did see two figures. Walking at the front was a young man with a calm expression. Behind the young man, a green mummy followed respectfully. "That's Zhuowen." When everyone's eyes fell on the young man, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. The surroundings fell into an eerie silence. That was because everyone recognized the identity of the young man. He was Zhuowen. When everyone came back to their senses, the eyes of the human cultivators lit up. They had a vague guess, and they couldn't suppress the excitement on their faces. As for the foreign cultivators, they were all pale. Their eyes were glazed and filled with disbelief. The ancestors of the Nine-Tailed Fox clan, Moon Wolf clan, and Giant Turtle clan almost couldn't stand still. "Zhuowen, what about Bing Hui?" The Black King took a step forward and stopped in front of Zhuowen. He stared at Zhuowen with bright eyes. Zhuowen stopped. Before he could say anything, the green-haired mummy behind him said smugly, "My master is unparalleled in this world. How can a mere old man like Ice Shui be a match for my master? Right now, not even dregs are left of that old geezer Bing Hui. He's already turned into ashes." Silence. It was so quiet that even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. When Zhuowen came down from Mount Sanqing, everyone had their guesses. But now, the green-haired corpse general had announced the final result. That was another matter altogether. This news was like a huge rock that was thrown into a lake, causing unimaginable waves. "Are you serious?" The Black King was so excited that his whole body was trembling. He knelt on one knee and thanked Zhuowen solemnly. It wasn't just the Black King. All of the human cultivators on Sanqing Street knelt on one knee to express their gratitude to Zhuowen. The three ancestors of the Nine-Tailed Fox tribe, the Moon Wolf tribe, and the Giant Turtle tribe almost fainted. Bing Hui really had been killed by Zhuowen. This guy was heaven-defying. Not only did he kill Wu Taiji, but he even killed the Outer Realm expert, Bing Hui. Just how strong was he? The foreign race army that had surrounded the human cultivators was also shocked by this news. They involuntarily retreated, no longer daring to surround the human cultivators. The green-haired mummy became even more smug when he saw everyone kneel. He cleared his throat and said, "That's more like it. My master is your savior. If it weren't for my master, your Sanqing Street would have been taken over by the Flood Street. In my opinion, my master is much more reliable than that nuisance Daoist Three Purities of your Sanqing Street." Ari. Before the green-haired mummy could finish speaking, Zhuowen picked him up and casually tossed him to the side. When the green-furred corpse saw Zhuo Wen's cold gaze, it immediately shut its mouth and stopped talking. Bang! At this moment, a middle-aged man was tied up and thrown in front of Zhuowen. "Fellow Daoist Zhuo, this guy exposed your location in front of Bing Hui. He also pointed out fellow Taoists Rao Tianhan, Mi Jinwen, and Tang Taihong. In the end, all three of them were killed by Bing Hui. Jiang Ruizi, who carried a divine sword on his back, and Du Huacan, who had a divine saber on his waist, walked over and pointed at the middle-aged man who was tied up in front of Zhuowen. Fellow Daoist Rao and the other two died. Zhuowen's expression changed slightly. Rao Tianhan and the other two were grateful. They had specially returned to the Nightmare Abyss to remind him of Bing Hui's matter and wanted him to escape as soon as possible. Moreover, when Zhuowen planned to face Bing Hui, the three of them supported him and were willing to face it with him. It could be said that the three of them were open and above board. Zhuowen admired them very much. Now, the three of them had been killed by Bing Hui because of this person's snitch. Zhuowen was furious and murderous intent rose in his heart. Lord Zhuo, please spare my life. I was blinded for a moment. I won't dare to do it again. Seeing that we're all humans, please spare my life. Ah! Before the middle-aged man could finish speaking, Zhuowen stomped on his chest. A terrifying force exploded, and the ground at the foot of the mountain trembled. Then, terrifying cracks appeared. Poochie. The middle-aged man spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes were wide open, and he completely lost his breath. The surrounding people looked at the middle-aged man who had been stomped to death by Zhuowen and were all silent. This was an expert that even the Outer Realm expert, Bing Hui, wasn't a match for. How would they dare to criticize this person? Seeing that we're all humans? A mocking smile appeared on Zhuowen's face as he continued, why don't I see you treating me as a member of the human race? When Bing Hui came to denounce me, it seemed like most of you were clamoring to hand me over. Now, you're using this method to morally kidnap me? Do you think I, Zhuowen, am easy to bully? Zhuowen flicked out a divine flame that landed on the middle-aged man and burned him to ashes. Most of the human cultivators present lowered their heads in shame when they heard Zhuowen's words. They were all the people who wanted to hand over Zhuowen and resented Zhuowen for bringing disaster to Sanqing Street. They weren't stupid. They knew that although Zhuowen's words were directed at the middle-aged man, they were actually directed at them. Fellow Daoist Du, fellow Daoist Jiang. Please take me to fellow Daoist Rao. Zhuowen said cautiously. Du Huacan and Jiang Ruizi naturally didn't object and hurriedly led the way. After Zhuowen left, only the alien army and human cultivators were left looking at each other, not knowing how to deal with each other. Du Huacan and Jiang Ruizi brought Zhuowen to the ice hand that trapped Rao Tianhan and the other two. Rao Tianhan and the other two had already turned into 3 ice sculptures in the ice hand's palm. Chapter 3620. Du Huacan and Jiang Ruizi helped the 3 up and found that they were still breathing. They said in surprise, Daoist Zhuo, they're still alive. But they're very weak now and unconscious. Zhuowen sighed and nodded. He took out 3 healing pellets and handed them to Du Huacan and Jiang Ruizi. He cupped his fists and said, I'll have to trouble the 2 of you to help me take care of the 3 of them. Du Huacan and Jiang Ruizi naturally agreed at once. Zhuowen was no longer the same as before. This person could even defeat Bing Hui. His strength could be said to be heaven-defying. He was enough to be called an invincible existence in this starry sky. They naturally wanted to get close to such an existence. They wouldn't offend him easily. Zhuo Xiaoyu, I hope you can remember our old friendship and save the 3 pure ones. The Black King rushed over with Lian Meng and the little Daoist. He cupped his fists and said to Zhuowen, Today, I'll give you face, Black King. However, if the 3 pure ones show any signs of plotting against me in the future, I, Zhuowen, will kill him even if I have to go to heaven or hell. After Zhuowen finished speaking, he waved his sleeve. Not far away, the ice hand that trapped the 3 pure ones collapsed. Zhuowen didn't even look at the 3 pure ones. He took the green-haired corpse and left the 3 pure ones street. He planned to enter the Desolation Street directly. The 3 pure ones fell to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. His consciousness was not clear. The Black King quickly helped the 3 pure ones up and fed him a healing pill. Only then did he manage to stabilize the 3 pure ones' injuries. Black King, Zhuowen, he's not dead. Didn't Bing Hui find him? The 3 pure ones looked at Zhuowen's back and said in shock. Bing Hui personally came to the 3 Pure Ones Street to kill this Zhuoan. This kid actually didn't die. The Black King smiled bitterly and said, Bing Hui did find Zhuoan and fought a great battle. In the end, Bing Hui died. What? The 3 Pure Ones trembled. He was so shocked that his heart was beating wildly. He thought he heard wrong. It wasn't until the Black King repeated himself that 3 Pure Ones realized he hadn't heard wrong. Bing Hui had indeed been killed by Zhuoan. Every generation brings forth new talents. Of the 3 Pure Ones, Zhuoan is not someone we can provoke. In the future, it's best to avoid him, the Black King said with a complicated expression. 3 Pure Ones' eyes were blank. In the end, he let out a long sigh and said, You're right. Zhuoan is not someone we can provoke in the future. He's already the strongest person in this expanse of the starry sky. How could I possibly offend such a person? At this point, the 3 Pure Ones appeared very dispirited, as if they had aged a lot in an instant. In the desolate street, in the Shaman Tower, Wu Xiangjuan held the communication jade talisman in her right hand. When she saw the message, her delicate body stiffened. Tower Master is dead. Even Lord Bing Hui was killed. Wu Xiangjuan's mind was in a mess. She had never thought that Wu Taiji and Bing Hui would go to Sanqing Street to capture Zhuowen and occupy it. The final outcome was actually like this. But soon, Wu Xiangjuan calmed down. She knew very well that with the death of Wu Taiji and Bing Hui, Zhuowen's target was likely to be the Shaman Tower. Zhuowen and Lord Bing Hui must have had a fierce battle. I'm afraid that he's seriously injured now. He'll definitely go to treat his wounds first. This is our chance to escape. Wu Xiangjuan's beautiful eyes flashed with wisdom. Immediately, she sent a message to the third master of the Shaman Tower, Wu Xianxia. Wu Xianxia was at the early stage of the fourth decay. He was an expert second only to the 2 tower masters in the Shaman Tower. With the 2 tower masters dead, Wu Xianxia was now the strongest expert in the Shaman Tower and had the highest prestige. Wu Xiangjuan asked Wu Xianxia to gather everyone in the Shaman Tower. After a while, Wu Xianxia broke into the living room where Wu Xiangjuan was. He said in a low voice, Madam, the elites of the Shaman Tower have been gathered in the courtyard. What should we do now? Wu Xianxia had also heard about the death of Wu Taiji and Bing Hui. He was at a loss and did not know what to do. Let's go. We must leave the heaven accessing place as soon as possible. If we're late, the Shaman Tower will be doomed. Wu Xiangjuan hurried out of the living room and saw dozens of experts of the sorcerer tribe standing in the courtyard. They were the most elite experts of the sorcerer tribe and represented the overall strength of the Shaman Tower. Wu Xianxia came to Wu Xiangjuan's side and said solemnly, Madam, I understand. There's no time to lose. Let's leave now. As soon as Wu Xianxia finished speaking, a terrifying gang wind swept over from the sky. Soon after, he was dumbfounded to find that a gigantic purple palm had descended from the sky, instantly enveloping the dozens of Earth elites in the courtyard. The elites of the Shaman Tower did not even have time to scream before they were smashed into powder by the purple palm. Leave. Where do you think you're going? Where can you go? An indifferent voice slowly came from outside. Immediately, Wu Xianxia and Wu Xiangjuan were horrified to see a young man slowly descend from mid-air into the ruined courtyard. Behind the young man was a green-haired mummy. You're Zhuowen? Wu Xiangjuan pointed at the young man and asked in a shrill voice. That's me. Zhuowen grinned. In the eyes of Wu Xiangjuan and Wu Xianxia, his smile was full of coldness. Back then, didn't your wizard tower come looking for me again and again? Now I, Zhuowen, have come to you. Shouldn't you be happy? Zhuowen said flatly. Wu Xiangjuan laughed dryly and said, Taoist Zhuo, maybe we have some misunderstanding. We didn't have much to do with the previous hunting of you. We were just following orders and had no choice. Wu Xianxia nodded like a chick pecking at rice. I don't care if you were following orders or acting alone. It has nothing to do with me. When I, Zhuowen, was being hunted by the Shaman Tower, I swore that one day, I would destroy the Shaman Tower. Today, it's time for me to fulfill my wish. At this point, the green-haired mummy behind Zhuowen suddenly rushed towards Wu Xiangjuan and Wu Xianxia. Wu Xianxia's eyes flashed fiercely. He roared and his muscles bulged. He pounced forward and fought with the green-haired mummy. Unfortunately, the difference between Wu Xianxia and the green-haired mummy was too great. In just one move, the green-haired mummy punched through his head and he died tragically on the spot. Wu Xiangjuan took the opportunity to crush the ground escape talisman that she had taken out earlier. She turned into a beam of light and disappeared on the spot. But at the instant that Wu Xiangjuan fled, Zhuo Wen had already withdrawn a strand of soul sword insight and fled through the sky. In less than 3 breaths, Wu Xiangjuan's scream could be heard in mid-air. Not far away in mid-air, Wu Xiangjuan's corpse fell from the sky. Master, there are still many sorcerer tribe cultivators in the shaman tower. What do you plan to do with them? The green-haired mummy asked. I'll burn the shaman tower with fire. We don't have to care about the ordinary sorcerer tribe cultivators. The elites of the shaman tower are all dead. The shaman tower only exists in name now, Zhuowen said calmly. The green-haired mummy nodded and spat out a strange green fire. It lit up the entire area of the shaman tower. Master, where do we go next? Zhuowen and the green-haired mummy hovered in mid-air and looked at the shaman tower that was drowned in a sea of green fire. Chapter 36:21. Have you heard? The shaman tower on Desolate Street was completely destroyed, and even the encampment was burned down. Aren't you a little too ill-informed? This happened a month ago. Not only the shaman tower, the corpse ghost race, the space-time beast race, the dragon race, the black tiger race, the phoenix people, and the merman race were all destroyed as well. Oh my god. What's going on? I just came out of seclusion. How did such a big thing happen? Who is it that is so powerful? It's Lord Zhuowen. A month ago, Wu Taiji and Bing Hui brought an army of outsiders to Sanqing Street aggressively. Both of them died in the hands of Lord Zhuowen. After that, Lord Zhuowen barged into Desolate Street alone and destroyed the encampment of the races that surrounded him back then. The entire Sanqing Street was crazily spreading Zhuowen's deeds. All the human cultivators had already worshipped Zhuowen as a god in their hearts. When they mentioned Zhuowen, they would respectfully address him as Lord Zhuo. If anyone dared to call Zhuowen by his name, they would definitely be denounced and even attacked. It could be said that Zhuowen was already a godlike figure in the hearts of the human cultivators. As for the outsiders on Desolate Street, they were also completely convinced by Zhuowen. A month ago, Zhuowen barged into Desolate Street alone and no one could stop him. With Zhuowen's strength, he could destroy the entire Desolate Street alone. However, he did not. Instead, he only dealt with the races that had hunted him down back then. He did not touch the rest of the outsiders. Even the cultivators of the nine-tailed fox race, moon wolf race, and giant turtle race who barged into Sanqing Street, as well as the 3 patriarchs, were all released. His actions won him the favor of many of the non-human cultivators in the Desolation Street. After the 3 patriarchs of the nine-tailed fox race, moon wolf race, and giant turtle race returned to Desolate Street, they strictly ordered the foreign cultivators not to be disrespectful to the human cultivators on Sanqing Street in the future. Now that Zhuowen had appeared in the human race, he was no longer someone the sorcerer tribe could afford to offend. As the main character of this incident, Zhuowen was sitting cross-legged in the main hall of the Palace of 3 Purities. The 3 Purities Palace had been turned into ruins during the battle between Zhuowen and Bing Hui. The 3 Purities Palace had been rebuilt by the 3 Purities and the Black King. A picture scroll floated in front of Zhuowen. Within the picture scroll was a budding green lotus. On the other hand, Zhuowen's eyes were slightly closed as a green lotus shadow appeared between his eyebrows. As the green lotus became more and more solid, the spirit in his glabella became more and more powerful. When the green lotus at the center of Zhuowen's eyebrows fully bloomed, the 12 green lotuses on the green lotus withered and all of them entered the center of Zhuowen's eyebrows. Boom! Suddenly, a terrifying aura gushed out from between Zhuowen's eyebrows. The entire main hall was enveloped by this aura. It actually started to tremble slightly as if it was afraid. Zhuowen opened his eyes abruptly. His eyes were filled with a blazing green light. This green lotus visualization diagram is really amazing. It's a cultivation technique that's completely made for the spirit. Zhuowen put away the green lotus visualization diagram that was floating in front of him. His eyes were filled with excitement. The green lotus visualization diagram was divided into 3 levels. If an ordinary cultivator cultivated the green lotus visualization diagram to the highest level, which was the 3rd level, then their spirit would be able to reach the heaven-crushing 3rd change. In this 1 month, Zhuowen almost forgot to eat and sleep to cultivate the green lotus visualization diagram. What he did not expect was that when he cultivated according to the green lotus visualization diagram and visualized the green lotus in his spirit, he actually managed to succeed easily. Moreover, his progress was extremely fast. In just 3 days, he successfully broke through the 1st level. Today, he broke through the 2nd level, and his spirit also successfully went from the peak of the heaven-crushing 1st change to the heaven-crushing 2nd change. He had only cultivated for a month, and he easily broke through to the 2nd level. This speed was a little shocking. However, after Zhuowen calmed down, he knew that the reason why his progress was so fast was probably because his spirit was strong to begin with. The green lotus visualization diagram was made for cultivators who had just broken through to the heaven-crushing 3rd change. In addition, Zhuowen's soul was very special. It contained the mysterious power of the primordial era, which was why his cultivation was so abnormally fast. After breaking through to the 2nd level of the green lotus visualization diagram, Zhuowen did not continue cultivating. The first 2 levels of the green lotus visualization diagram were relatively simple, but the 3rd level was much more difficult. Zhuowen estimated that if he wanted to successfully cultivate the 3rd level, it would take at least 3 months to half a year. He still had some things to take care of. Moreover, he still had an appointment with Donghuang Taiyi and Xu Yuan, so he did not have much time to waste. Zhuowen took out a spirit ring from the great world, and his eyes narrowed as he carefully examined it. He had obtained this spirit ring from Bing Hui, and he had not opened it yet. Bing Hui is a being from the 100 domains, after all, so he must have a lot of good stuff on him. Zhuowen's eyes burned. With his current level of formation Dao, it was not difficult for him to open the restrictions on the spirit ring. After opening the spirit ring, he scanned it with his divine sense, and his eyes instantly became much more fervent. There were more chaos crystals in Bing Hui's spirit ring than the owner of the golden coffin. There were close to 1,000 of them. Aside from that, Zhuowen also found several heaven-crushing grade 1 godly medicines. What surprised Zhuowen the most was that Zhuowen actually found a jade slip in Bing Hui's spirit ring. This jade slip recorded a heaven-crushing grade pill recipe. This pill recipe was called the 7 Lives Qi Recovery Pill, and it was a heaven-crushing grade 1 godly pill. The main ingredient of the 7 Lives Qi Recovery Pill could quickly recover shattered divine power, and it also had a certain healing effect. This pill was not only effective for first heaven-crushing cultivators, but it was also quite useful for second heaven-crushing cultivators. What surprised Zhuowen even more was that Bing Hui just so happened to have the main ingredient of the 7 Lives Qi Recovery Pill in his spirit ring. In fact, he had even prepared some supplementary godly medicines. It was clear that Bing Hui had prepared all of this in order to ask a certain alchemist to refine the 7 Lives Qi Recovery Pill. However, Bing Hui had died at Zhuowen's hands in the end, so he had no chance to use these godly medicines. Zhuowen's consciousness had already evolved to the second heaven-crushing grade, and his formation Dao and alchemy Dao skills had also reached the heaven-crushing grade. He had indeed successfully broken through to the next level in formation Dao, but his alchemy Dao was hindered by the fact that he did not have a heaven-crushing grade pill recipe. Thus, Zhuowen had not been able to break through to the next level. However, now that he had obtained the pill recipe for the 7 Lives Qi Recovery Pill, he would be able to successfully refine a heaven-crushing grade divine pill and become a heaven-crushing grade 1 alchemist. Zhuowen was not in a hurry to refine the pill. Instead, he continued to look through Bing Hui's spirit ring. In Bing Hui's spirit ring, Zhuowen discovered that aside from the most common cultivation method, the extreme purple spirit technique, he also discovered 2 heaven-crushing grade divine abilities. These 2 divine abilities were the ethereal ice saber and the shadowless snow. Zhuowen was not unfamiliar with the ethereal ice saber. Bing Hui had used this ice saber during his battle with him. This ice saber was extremely elusive and difficult to guard against. In the end, Zhuoan had to use all of his power to barely block this ice saber. This was a testament to the power of this ice saber. Chapter 36:22. It wasn't difficult for Zhuoan to learn these two divine abilities. However, Zhuoan didn't want to copy these two divine abilities. His soul had fused with the primordial stone, and his comprehension had reached an unprecedented level. Moreover, he had created the primordial technique on the basis of the primordial technique. It was a heaven-defying technique that could allow one to cultivate shattering divine power before breaking the heavens. Therefore, he didn't plan to cultivate the ethereal ice blade and traceless snow. Instead, he planned to use these two divine abilities as reference to create a divine ability that was truly suitable for him. He had a premonition that this search for primordial providence might be extremely dangerous. He had to improve himself as soon as possible before that. Let's refine the 7 lives recovery pill first. Zhuoan took a deep breath and summoned the Emperor Pill Furnace. He ignited the divine fire and prepared to refine the 7 lives recovery pill. He knew that creating a divine ability wasn't an easy task. It would definitely take a lot of time. On the contrary, refining the heaven-breaking level 1 divine pill would be faster. Therefore, he planned to improve his alchemy skills first. While Zhuoan was focused on refining pills, in the 100 Outer Realms, in the alternate ghost realm where the alternate ghost tribe was located, there was an endless area of ice and snow. In this area, there was constant wind and snow all year round. It was desolate and uninhabited. There was only a huge palace that stood in the depths of the snowstorm. This area of ice and snow and the palace could be said to be a forbidden area in the alternate ghost realm. Ordinary people were not qualified to approach at all. This was because this was the palace of the Ice Demon King, one of the 3 kings of the alternate ghost tribe. Inside the palace, in the huge main hall, a figure slowly walked in from outside the door. This was a young man with a golden vertical mark between his eyebrows. The young man slowly walked to the center of the main hall and looked respectfully at the man in ice armor standing in front of him. He knelt on one knee and said in a deep voice, "Disciple Sakyamuni greets Master. Shitian, do you know why I suddenly summoned you?" The man didn't turn around. Instead, he spoke indifferently. His voice was low and magnetic. Sakyamuni's eyes flickered. He lowered his head and said, "Disciple doesn't know. Bing Hui has left the palace these few days. Do you know where he went?" The man asked indifferently. Sakyamuni's pupils shrank. He lowered his head and said, "I'm not sure. I only just found out that senior brother left the palace. Maybe he went out to meet with friends." At this moment, the ice-armored man slowly turned around. This was a middle-aged man with a goatee, but his face was so pale that he didn't seem human. Upon closer inspection, his skin was crystal clear, as if it had been carved out of ice. He was the master of this palace, and also the famous Ice Fiend King of the other ghost realm. "It's just a gathering. Do you think Bing Hui would lose his life? His life jade has been shattered." The Ice Fiend King's gaze became extremely stern. He stared coldly at Sakyamuni. "What? Senior brother, he?" Sakura abruptly raised his head and said in disbelief, "Tell me the truth. Where did Bing Hui go?" The Ice Fiend King asked coldly. Sakyamuni took a deep breath and no longer concealed anything, telling him about how Bing Hui had gone to Wandering Starry Sky to kill Zhuoan. "Oh, he killed your enemy in the lower realm? And he died in the lower realm?" The Ice Fiend King frowned. Logically speaking, even if Bing Hui's cultivation was suppressed to the peak of the 5th blight, there shouldn't be anyone in the lower realm that could be his opponent. But he actually died. The Ice Fiend monarch muttered to himself in confusion. "Master, it must be that Zhuoan obtained the inheritance of the Pangu clan in the lower realm. He's not an ordinary person. Senior brother must have died in his hands. Master, you must avenge senior brother," Sakyamuni said hatefully. "Haha, the Pangu clan has already been destroyed. The place you came from is called Wandering Starry Sky. It's just the most ordinary member of the Pangu clan. It hasn't even broken through the heavens. How can such a trashy inheritance be called extraordinary? The Ice Fiend King sneered. His eyes were filled with disdain. Sakyamuni was startled. Then what about senior brother Bing Hui's revenge? You were the one who caused this, so naturally, you have to deal with it. Whether it's his talent or his inheritance, he's far inferior to you. When he breaks through the heavens and comes to the 100 territories, you should personally deal with him. At that time, the gap between the two of you will be very big. He's just an ant in your eyes. Speaking up to here, the Ice Fiend King's eyes were filled with pride. Shitian, you're in a new world now, not the narrow world at the bottom of the well where you were before. In the future, you'll become the most outstanding genius of the other ghost realm, and even the most dazzling rising star of the 100 territories. Your world will only become bigger and bigger. Broaden your horizons. Don't stick to the starry sky of the lower realms that you used to live in. You're no longer in the same world as them. Sakyamuni pondered for a moment before a look of realization appeared on his face. The Ice Fiend King was right. He had the undying Tao root, and his talent was extraordinary. Moreover, his Tao root had the abnormal ability to continuously evolve. In addition, the Ice Fiend King had nurtured him wholeheartedly. In the future, he was destined to shock the 100 territories. In his eyes, Zhuoan, who was extremely difficult to deal with in the past, was just a frog at the bottom of a well. He was no longer comparable to him. Master, you're right. I understand. Sakyamuni said respectfully. The Ice Fiend King nodded and said, then go back and continue cultivating. When your cultivation reaches the heaven-breaking third transformation, you'll be qualified to leave the ice domain and travel. Sakyamuni nodded heavily and left the palace. After Sakyamuni left the palace, the Ice Fiend King's eyes gradually turned cold. He said to a hidden person, pay attention to the movements of that and called Zhuoan at all times. If that kid succeeds in breaking through the heavens and enters the 100 territories through the primordial path, then make a move and kill that kid in advance. As soon as the Ice Fiend King finished speaking, the sound of a figure moving came from the dark. Obviously, the person in the dark had received his orders and left. Half a year later, a strange phenomenon suddenly appeared in the sky above Sanqing Mountain. A terrifying lightning tribulation descended. All the cultivators on Sanqing Street gathered their gazes in the sky above Sanqing Mountain. They were all stunned to find that the lightning tribulation was not caused by a cultivator, but by a pill furnace. To be more precise, it was the divine pills in the pill furnace. What kind of divine pill can cause lightning tribulation to descend from the heavens? Could it be the legendary heaven-breaking divine pill? All the cultivators on Sanqing Street discussed spiritedly. However, the lightning tribulation came quickly and left quickly. It was forcefully blocked by a figure. And this figure was no stranger to everyone. It was Zhuoan. 3 pure ones, the Black King, Lian Meng, and the others were also alarmed by the lightning tribulation. They walked out of the side hall and were all stunned when they saw the furnace of divine pills. Zhuoan has refined a heaven-breaking divine pellet. 3 pure ones revealed a bitter smile as he muttered to himself. After Zhuoan put away the pill furnace, he landed not far from 3 pure ones and the others in high spirits. The green-furred mummy had already come out and hurried to Zhuoan's side like a loyal dog. Chapter 36-23. In the chaotic starry sky outside the heaven accessing place, a stream of light flashed past and stopped at the edge of the chaotic starry sky. It was a gravel area full of meteorites. Zhuoan put away the space-time roulette and chose the largest meteorite in the gravel area. He punched a huge hole in the center of the meteorite and used array techniques to set up a temporary cave residence in the hole. He planned to comprehend the traceless snow and the ethereal ice saber in this temporary cave residence. Of course, his main purpose was not to cultivate these two divine powers, but to integrate them into the primordial chant by combining them with the fate space-time kill. The primordial chant was a simplified version of the primitive primordial chant. When he broke through the heaven-breaking realm in the future, the power of the primordial chant would be transformed into the primitive primordial chant. If he created his own divine powers and integrated them into the primordial chant, the divine powers would not be independent, but closely related to the primitive primordial chant. In layman's terms, the level and power of the divine powers he created in the future would skyrocket as he cultivated the primitive primordial chant. After preparing the cave residence, Zhuowen immediately went into seclusion and began to use the power of understanding brought by the primitive primordial stone in his divine soul to deduce new divine powers by combining the two divine powers, the primordial chant and the fate spacetime kill. Time passed, and in the blink of an eye, 5 years had passed. On this day, a strange and mysterious power surged in the deepest part of the natural moat in the starry sky. In the deepest part, at the edge of the chaotic starry sky, a stream of light flew out from the depths of the chaotic starry sky. The light faded, and the main body of the stream of light turned out to be an exquisite and gorgeous divine ship. On the deck of the divine ship stood 2 figures, a man and a woman. The man was handsome and tall, and the woman was as beautiful as a flower. If one only looked at their appearance, they would be a rare handsome man and a beautiful woman, even in the human clan. However, the strange thing was that the 2 of them were not humans. Their upper bodies were exactly the same as humans, but their lower bodies had snake tails. If Zhuowen saw the 2 of them, he would definitely be able to recognize them as members of the newer clan. He had once found Nuwu's physical body in the Nightmare Abyss. The latter's form was exactly the same as the stone statues in the Nightmare Abyss. This was a characteristic of the newer clan's bloodline. Junior sister, we should have arrived. The coordinates that Luo Hong gave us are this starry sky. On the deck, a bright light flashed in the eyes of the handsome man, who was in a good mood. I truly didn't expect that Falling Rainbow's luck would be so good that she would be able to find a perfect desireless. The desireless ones are much harder to succeed than the heartless ones. A perfect desireless one can pass through the heartless one's trial and finally transform. The woman said with a smile. The man nodded and said, Falling Rainbow can be considered a great merit this time. We can also gain a lot of benefits. I'll contact Luo Hong and have him bring people out. As he spoke, the man pointed his sword finger at his glabella. A dim light appeared between his eyebrows as if he was communicating with something. Soon, the man opened his eyes again, but his expression became somewhat unsightly. Senior brother, what's wrong? When the woman saw the man's expression, she frowned and asked. Falling Rainbow's aura has disappeared. She's fallen. The man's eyes surged with killing intent, and he suppressed his voice as he spoke. What? Who was it? Who actually dared to spoil our newer clan's plans and even dared to kill our clansmen? The woman said with shock and fury. It should be a native of this starry sky. When Falling Rainbow sent us a message earlier, she said that she was attacked by desireless ones, and only a trace of her divine soul was left. She's too weak. Any living being with a slightly stronger strength in this starry sky can obliterate the trace of her divine soul that was left. Falling Rainbow was too careless and was discovered by someone, so. The man frowned slightly, but his expression wasn't very good. He'd obtained news of Falling Rainbow with great difficulty, and he'd specially hid it from the elders and hurried over here just to take all the credit for himself. Now that Falling Rainbow had fallen, the clues could be considered to have been completely cut off. Senior brother, without Falling Rainbow's guidance, we don't know who the desireless ones are. The woman seemed to be slightly anxious as she spoke. The man's eyes flickered, and he took out a fragrant sachet from his spirit ring and said, the only way now is to use this desireless fragrant sachet. This desireless fragrant sachet usually looks like an ordinary fragrant sachet, but once you get within 1,000 miles of the desireless ones, this fragrant sachet will emit a strange fragrance. Moreover, the closer you get to the desireless ones, the stronger the fragrance will be. The woman's beautiful eyes lit up, and she said with a sweet smile, as expected of senior brother, you actually prepared such a trick. It's just that we don't have any treasures that can suppress our realms, so I'm afraid we won't be able to enter this starry sky of the lower realms. No matter. Senior brother has his own ways. The corners of the man's mouth curled into a smile. Suddenly, his right hand grabbed at the void. An invisible hand stretched out of the divine ship, and a series of miserable shrieks came from outside the ship. Then, a figure was unceremoniously grabbed by the man's hand and thrown onto the deck. On the deck, a humanoid mechanical life was thrown onto the ground by the man, and it was constantly struggling and twitching in pain. "Looks like you've been secretly observing us for a long time," the man said indifferently. The humanoid mechanical life endured the pain, hurriedly stood up, knelt in front of the man, and kowtowed continuously, saying, "Sir, this lowly one didn't do it on purpose. I've been hiding here since a long time ago." "Oh, you don't seem to be a life form from this starry sky, right? Then why have you been hiding here all this time?" the man asked curiously. The two of them had obtained a lot of information from Luo Hong, and they knew that most of the life forms in the starry sky were humans and foreign races. There was no such existence of a mechanical life like this. "This lowly one is from the Golden Corner starry sky. The reason I've been hiding here is mainly to..." The humanoid mechanical life revealed the Golden Corner starry sky's intention to invade the starry sky in full detail. The humanoid mechanical life knew very well that the two people in front of it were definitely heaven breakers from the 100 domains outside the realm. It really didn't dare to deceive such existences in the slightest. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. "Oh, logically speaking, the Golden Corner starry sky is much more powerful than the starry sky. Why haven't you sent an army to occupy this starry sky?" the man asked with interest. The humanoid mechanical life smiled bitterly. "It's not that we don't want to, but the large-scale teleportation formation from the Golden Corner starry sky to the starry sky hasn't been completed yet. The Golden Corner starry sky's army can't pass at all. As the vanguard, I was sent here to constantly monitor the movements of the starry sky so that we can prepare for an all-out attack on the starry sky in the future." Chapter 36-24. The man and woman looked at each other with a smile on their faces. "He, the great formation of this border is not worth mentioning to me." As he spoke, the man casually grabbed and the great formation with light flowing at the border was torn apart. "Who is it? How dare you tear apart the great formation here?" After the great formation was broken, a huge mechanical black dragon roared out from the border and instantly appeared in front of the divine ship. "Curse Yang, it really is you. During this period of time, I always felt that something was spying on me. You are really lurking in the dark." The black dragon first glanced at the humanoid mechanical life and snorted coldly. Then, it turned its gaze to the man and woman on the divine ship with a look of fear in its eyes. It could faintly feel that the strength of this man and woman was not simple. It actually made it shudder. "Both of you. Presumably, you are not from the Golden Corner starry sky. This is a private matter of the Golden Corner starry sky. I hope you two will not interfere," the black dragon said to the man and woman on the divine ship in a deep voice. "Noisy." The man waved his hand impatiently. Suddenly, the black dragon was directly knocked to the ground by an invisible force. Immediately afterward, the humanoid mechanical life discovered that the black dragon twitched on the ground for a while. Then, its huge body suddenly petrified and then shattered into countless pieces. Seeing this scene, the humanoid mechanical life named Curse Yang became more and more fearful. He looked at the man and woman on the deck with more and more awe. "I have already helped you get rid of the great formation and the ants that are in the way. Now, I have one thing that I need your help with. I think you should know how to repay kindness." The man looked at Curse Yang with a smile. The latter trembled all over and quickly smiled. "Sir, please tell me. I will definitely die 1,000 times. Take this sachet and enter the starry sky. Find me a woman who can make this sachet emit a strange fragrance. Once you find her, send me a message and tell us the woman's appearance, aura, and location." The man handed the sachet to Curse Yang. Curse Yang was startled. He did not expect the man to give him such a simple task. He just had to enter the starry sky to find someone. "Sir, if I can successfully find the person you are looking for, can you help our Golden Corner starry sky perfect the teleportation array?" Zhu Yang suddenly knelt on the ground and asked. The man looked at Zhu Yang silently, pondered for a moment, and nodded. "If you are lucky enough to fulfill your mission, I can help you perfect the teleportation array in Golden Corner starry sky. However, I have another condition. When your Golden Universe starry sky army invades the hovering starry sky, capture the person I'm looking for alive and bring him to me." Zhu Yang chuckled and said, Your Excellency, you don't have to be so troublesome. When I find this person, I can personally capture him and offer him to Your Excellency. The man sneered, as far as I know, the person I'm looking for has a fifth blight cultivator by his side. Are you sure you can capture this person alive and not be captured alive? Curse Yang quickly shut his mouth and stopped talking completely. What a joke, his cultivation was only at the late stage of the third heaven's blight, the difference between him and the fifth heaven's blight was too great. If he really went to capture them, how would he be able to return alive? Go. Your mission is to find the woman I want you to find. As for capturing this woman, I still have to rely on the strength of your golden corner starry sky. The man said faintly. Curse Yang cupped his hands to the man and woman, jumped off the divine ship, and walked step by step to the border. When he completely entered the hovering starry sky, his appearance completely changed, and he became an ordinary middle-aged man. Senior brother, do you think this guy is reliable? The woman looked at Curse Yang's back and frowned slightly. As long as my sachet is reliable, it's fine. With my sachet, this person will definitely find it. We just need to wait and see. The man smiled faintly. Boom. At the edge of the chaotic starry sky in the heaven-accessing realm, a gravel area burst open, and the surrounding meteorites all burst into powder, forming a blazing halo. In the blazing halo, a figure slowly walked out of it. Strangely, as this person walked, purple snow began to fall within a radius of 10,000 miles. In the purple snow, within 10,000 miles, it was like a self-sealed world. This person walked in the purple snow, strolling leisurely. His figure was like a ghost, constantly flickering and changing directions. His speed was as fast as purple lightning, dazzling people. Zhuo Wen stopped in his tracks and looked at the purple snow around him. His eyes shone with excitement. In the past 5 years, he had been comprehending the two great magic powers all the time, trying to combine them with the power of the primordial mantra. Hard work paid off, and he succeeded. This magic power was a brand new magic power he created by combining the magic power Traceless Snow with the primordial mantra. Whether in power or speed, it was far superior to Traceless Snow. What was even rarer was that the power of this magic power was enhanced with the primordial mantra, and it could grow. He named this magic power Primordial Purple Snow. He also successfully integrated the Destiny Spacetime Kill and the Ethereal Ice Blade into the primordial mantra, creating a new and more powerful magic power. The magic power created by the combination of the Destiny Spacetime Kill and the primordial mantra was named Primordial Life Severing. The biggest feature of Primordial Life Severing was that when facing an enemy, it could restrain the enemy's destiny. If it was powerful enough, it could sever the enemy's destiny without anyone noticing, causing the enemy to die on the spot. As for the third ability, it was a combination of the primordial chant and the ethereal ice blade. The newly formed ice blade was named Primordial Floating Blade by Zhuo Wen. Among the three great magic powers, Primordial Purple Snow focused on speed, Primordial Life Severing focused on calculation, and Primordial Flying Blade focused on attacking and killing. With these three great divine abilities in hand, Zhuo Wen's strength could unleash 200% of its power. Primordial Flying Blade. Zhuo Wen suddenly stomped his feet in the air, and the purple snow around him became more violent. He formed hand seals with both hands, and instantly, a purple blade without a handle formed in front of him. The purple blade disappeared in the blink of an eye and appeared at the edge of the purple snow. It flickered again and appeared at the other end of the purple snow. Whether it was speed or power, this purple blade was stronger than the ethereal ice blade. The purple blade kept flashing around him, and he suddenly grabbed the air with both hands. Primordial Life Severing. A purple tide gushed out from the void, forming a huge hand that looked like his real arm. It grabbed at the void in front of him, and the time and space in the void seemed to be restrained, coming to a complete standstill. Destiny was more mysterious than time and space. This move of his could even restrain the river of destiny in the void. Of course, this magic power was still too weak, and it could only be restrained for a short period of time. Not long after, the might caused by the three great abilities, Violet Snow, Floating Blade, and Life Severing, had completely disappeared, whereas Zhuowen was like an ordinary young man, standing on a piece of rock. Now, I'm invincible in the universe, and everyone knows about me. Every living being in the universe knows about me, Zhuowen. Chapter 36-25. When Zhuowen returned to the Three Purities Palace, Daoist Three Purities, the Black King, and the others all came out to greet him, standing respectfully in front of Zhuowen. Especially the Three Purities, he was the most nervous. Since the Heavenly Armor Star, he had been scheming against Zhuowen. It could be said that Zhuowen was the most crucial step in his plan to break the heavens. However, Zhuowen's growth was too fast, and his strength was now far beyond his. What was worse was that Zhuowen knew all about his plans, and it was reasonable for him to kill him. Rika will be born again, and the Xian-Mi heavenly domain will be managed by me, Rika. Do you have any objections? Zhuowen looked at the Three Purities and asked. The Three Purities hurriedly cupped his hands and said, Lord Shui is now the savior of our wandering starry sky. As long as you say the word, not to mention the Xian-Mi heavenly domain, even the heaven accessing place will be at your disposal. Zhuowen waved his hand and said, forget about the heaven accessing place. I only want the Xian-Mi heavenly domain, and I want you to swear that you will not touch the Xian-Mi heavenly domain in the future. Otherwise, I will be destroyed by the heavens and the earth. The Three Purities and the Black King looked at each other, but they did not dare to disobey Zhuowen. They hurriedly swore to the heavenly Tao. Zhuowen saw that the Three Purities and the Black King were so tactful and could not help but nod with satisfaction. Have you heard of the Golden Corner Starry Sky? Zhuowen suddenly asked. The Three Purities and the Black King were stunned and shook their heads. Zhuowen pondered for a moment, then told them everything that had happened in the depths of the heavenly moat. The Three Purities and the Black King turned pale with fright after hearing it. Especially when they heard that the Golden Corner Starry Sky was going to attack their wandering starry sky, which made them both shocked and angry. Don't have any wishful thinking. The Golden Corner Starry Sky is much more powerful than our starry sky, and there are many more fifth blight powerhouses than us. And I also heard that there were several heaven-breaking realm powerhouses in the Golden Corner Starry Sky. However, after these heaven-breaking realm elites broke through, they went to the 100 outer realms to pursue an even higher realm. Zhuowen said indifferently. Three Pure Ones and the Black King smiled bitterly and then looked at Zhuowen expectantly. Master Zhuo, if Golden Corner Starry Sky really invades our starry sky, will you intervene? Don't worry, I will definitely make a move. However, you have to take precautions early. Remember to inform the desolate street. The heaven accessing place must unite this time. The Golden Starry Sky is not simple. Also, remember to send people to guard the heavenly moat and monitor the movements there. If they really attack, we will be prepared. After saying that, Zhuowen left Sanqing Street. Three Pure Ones and the Black King wanted Zhuowen to stay and guard the heaven accessing place. But seeing that Zhuowen had already made up his mind, he didn't dare to ask him to stay. After leaving the heaven accessing place, Zhuowen went straight to the Xian-Mi heavenly domain. If he wanted to head to the demon region, he would have to pass through the Xian-Mi heavenly region. In the Eastern Way territory of the Xian-Mi heavenly domain, Zhuowen found a quiet and vast valley. He arranged the heaven-breaking level 1 trap and kill array around the valley. In the blink of an eye, the originally picturesque valley was shrouded in a thick fog. With a wave of his sleeve, Zhuowen held a bronze formation flag in his hand. This formation flag was the core of the formation. It was used to control the opening and closing of the formation, as well as its power. With this formation, almost no one in this starry sky could break into the valley. After doing this, Zhuowen moved all the Rika people from the macro world to the valley. Long Xiaotian, Feng Xiao, and all the other Rika people knew about the migration of the Rika people. Therefore, when Zhuowen moved all of them to the strange valley, they were not surprised. On the contrary, they were all full of excitement. They had stayed in the macro world for a long time and hadn't been in contact with the outside world for too long. Brother Zhuo, Crepe Myrtle Star followed Feng Xiao and Long Xiaotian. He took the initiative to greet Zhuowen. After leaving the primitive heavenly domain, Crepe Myrtle Star basically stayed in Zhuowen's macro world to cultivate. Not long after he came out of seclusion, he learned that the Rika people were moving to the Xian Mi heavenly domain. He was a little excited. Brother Crepe Myrtle, congratulations. You've already broken through, right? You're not far from the first blight. Zhuowen sized up Crepe Myrtle Star and immediately saw that his cultivation had reached the peak of the Master of Heaven. When he first entered the macro world, his cultivation was at the late stage of the Master of Heaven. Now, not only had he advanced to the peak of the Master of Heaven, he could see that Crepe Myrtle Star was about to attract the Blight Tribulation. As long as he successfully passed the Blight Tribulation, his cultivation would break through again and advance to the first Blight. It's all thanks to the surging energy in your macro world, Brother Zhuo. Otherwise, my cultivation wouldn't be so fast. I wonder how your cultivation is now, Brother Zhuo? Crepe Myrtle Star looked at Zhuowen with a trace of competition in his eyes. He had been in seclusion all this time, so he didn't know much about Zhuowen's situation outside. He thought that Zhuowen's cultivation was at most around the first blight and that he wouldn't be much stronger than him. Moreover, he thought that with the inheritance of the undying bird, his strength was stronger than his cultivation. If he fought with Zhuowen, Zhuowen might not be his match. Back then, Zhuowen had surpassed him in strength, which made him quite depressed. This time, he had to earn back his face. Zhuowen smiled embarrassedly but didn't answer. If he told the truth, wouldn't it be a blow to Crepe Myrtle Star? Brother Zhuo, why are you hemming and hawing? I know your talent isn't inferior to mine, and your cultivation isn't much weaker than mine either. Seeing Zhuowen's expression, Myrtle Star Monarch felt somewhat pleased and asked, "You're just a little guy who hasn't even reached the first blight, yet you want to compare cultivation with my master? Let me tell you, my master can even kill Wu Taiji of the Wilderness Street with a single slap. Even Daoist 3 Purities has to respectfully call him Lord in front of him." Suddenly, the green-furred corpse behind Zhuowen glared at Crepe Myrtle Star, feeling that Crepe Myrtle Star didn't know the rules. In his heart, who was Zhuowen? How could he have the time to compare cultivation with you? Moreover, the two couldn't be compared. Crepe Myrtle Star's smile froze. He recognized the green-furred corpse. Back in Witch God City, this green-furred corpse had beaten Zhuowen until he fled in a sorry state and almost killed Zhuowen. He knew very well that this green-furred corpse was definitely a half-step heaven-breaking realm expert. Its strength was ridiculously powerful. But now, this guy was actually following behind Zhuowen like a servant. Crepe Myrtle Star wasn't stupid. He could naturally tell that the master the green-furred corpse mentioned was Zhuowen. And to be able to make an expert like the green-furred corpse his master, it was enough to see how powerful Zhuowen was at the moment. In particular, the green-furred corpse's words completely shocked Crepe Myrtle Star. Chapter 36-26. Get down. Who allowed you to speak? Zhuowen shouted sternly. The green-haired mummy drooped its head and did not dare to speak. It seems that I have been looking at the sky from the bottom of the well. It turns out that Brother Zhuo is already so strong, Purple Star Sovereign said with a wry smile. Zhuowen, on the other hand, was speechless. It was truly too awkward. Fortunately, Purple Star Sovereign did not care. He broke the awkwardness and chatted with Zhuowen, Feng Xiao and Long Xiaotian. There was no disappointment on his face. "Father, I'll leave these 9 Huyi divine arrows and Huyi divine bow to you. These divine weapons are extremely powerful and can kill the Tongtian master." Zhuowen took out the Huyi divine bow and Huyi divine arrows and solemnly handed them to Long Xiaotian. These divine weapons have been with him for a long time. For a long time, they were his trump cards and were extremely powerful. However, his strength had increased too quickly. Thus, the Huyi divine bow and Huyi divine arrow were of little value to him. Therefore, he plans to give them to Long Xiaotian. You know that I don't like to use weapons like bows and arrows. Long Xiaotian took the Huyi divine bow and Huyi divine arrows and said helplessly. He naturally knows that the Huyi divine bow and Huyi divine arrows were once Zhuowen's trump cards. They are very powerful divine weapons. It's okay. Father can help me find its fated person, Zhuowen said with a smile. After that, Zhuowen met many of the Long family's acquaintances one by one and chatted with them. Brother Zhuo, will I bring you any trouble? Moyan Wushang walked in front of Zhuowen and asked in a low voice. Zhuowen stroked her hair and said with a smile, I've never been afraid of trouble. If trouble comes to me, I'll break it. You don't have to worry. Moyan Wushang suddenly hugged Zhuowen. He buried his head in Zhuowen's chest and said softly, Brother Zhuowen, thank you for being so good to me. Zhuowen gently hugged Moyan Wushang and said, Wushang, don't worry. With me here, no one can touch you. As long as you have confidence in me, I will fight for a bright future for you. Zhuowen stayed in the valley for more than a month. When the Riker had settled down, he waved goodbye to the Riker. He had to return to the demon realm and fulfill his promise with Donghuang Taiyi and Shu Yuan. When the crowd saw Zhuowen leave the valley, they were all reluctant to part with him. Moyan Wushang stood at the entrance of the valley until Zhuowen's figure disappeared from her sight. Then, she slowly turned around. Her beautiful eyes were filled with determination. Big brother Zhuo, I won't let you shoulder everything alone. I'll share the burden with you. Moyan Wushang clenched her fist. In her palm, there was a transparent bead. Looking carefully, the inside of the bead was filled with white fog. In the depths of the fog, there was a faintly discernible passage. It was a very strange bead. When Zhuowen arrived at the outer part of the Xianmi heavenly domain, he stopped and his eyes flashed. Ever since he defeated Black Dragon in the heavenly moat, Black Dragon had been guarding the depths of the heavenly moat to prevent any sudden movements. But when he arrived at the heavenly moat, he realized that something was wrong. Because when he sent Black Dragon a message and was about to ask him about the situation in the depths of the heavenly moat, Black Dragon did not reply. Did something happen? Zhuowen's face did not look good. He knew that Black Dragon would never not reply to him, unless Black Dragon had fallen or been subdued. Thinking of this, Zhuowen's face was gloomy. He slowly sank into the heavenly moat and rushed towards the depths. At the same time, his powerful divine sense spread out like a fan and radiated in all directions. The scenery around the heavenly moat was panoramic. When he arrived at the bottom of the heavenly moat, he immediately discovered that the grand formation at the intersection of the heavenly moat and the outside chaotic starry sky had already been broken open. He came to the vicinity of this pit and carefully examined it. His gaze became more and more solemn. He actually sensed a surging aura of shattered divine power from this gap in the grand formation. He knew that the guy who destroyed this grand formation was a shattering heaven realm powerhouse. Who could it be? Zhuowen's face was solemn. He did not see Black Dragon here either. He knew that Black Dragon should have met with misfortune. Boom! Suddenly, a terrifying energy swept over from the outside chaotic starry sky. Like an invisible giant hand, it grabbed at Zhuowen. Zhuowen's face changed drastically. This energy was too powerful. It actually gave him a scalp-tingling sense of danger. Zhuowen used his movement technique Primordial Purple Snow without hesitation. Purple snow fell majestically in a radius of 10,000 miles. And Zhuowen turned into a purple shadow and instantly retreated far enough away. Bam! Not long after Zhuowen retreated, the place where he had been standing suddenly exploded. One giant pit after another was blasted open. And the grand formation that had been left at the edge was completely pulverized by this terrifying energy. Zhuowen's expression was solemn. He could sense that this energy was extremely powerful. It was far more powerful than a shattering heaven realm cultivator. The person who had attacked him was at least a shattering heaven realm cultivator. Although Zhuowen's consciousness had evolved to the shattering heaven realm, his cultivation base was far inferior. He still had a chance against a shattering heaven realm cultivator. As for a shattering heaven realm cultivator, he had no chance at all. Of course, if he suppressed his cultivation base like Bing Hui and descended into the starry sky, Zhuowen could also battle him or even kill him. But outside the chaotic starry sky, he did not have much of a chance of victory. It's a shattering heaven realm divine power. May I ask which clan you're from? After Zhuowen dodged that attack, Exclamations of surprise traveled over from the chaotic starry sky. And Zhuowen finally saw a divine ship slowly appear not far away in the chaotic starry sky. This divine ship had always been here, but it had been concealed in the chaotic starry sky, so Zhuowen had not detected it. Zhuowen also saw a handsome man and a beautiful woman on the deck of the divine ship. In particular, his eyes narrowed when he saw that the lower half of the man and woman's body were actually snakes. The newer clan, Zhuowen murmured in a low voice. His voice was very soft, but the man and woman still heard him. However, the man and the woman were not surprised. Their newer clan's form was quite unique in the 100 domains, so it was very easy to recognize them. And this also confirmed their belief that Zhuowen was most likely a cultivator from the 100 domains who had descended into the starry sky. Fellow Daoist, I'm Gong Qilu from the newer clan, and she's my junior sister, Ni Sai. In order to descend into the starry sky of the lower realm, you're willing to sever your own cultivation. Your courage is really commendable. I admire you. Gong Qilu cupped his hands to Zhuowen and said politely. Zhuowen was stunned at first, but then he suddenly understood. He knew that after he displayed his divine power, the two of them had mistakenly thought that he was also a cultivator from the 100 domains. I just have a mission, and I had no choice but to descend here. If the two of you have nothing else to say, then I'll take my leave. Zhuowen did not want to be too entangled with the two of them. He knew that the two of them should have come to look for Moyan Wushang. However, seeing that the two of them had not come in for a long time, it was likely that they did not have any treasures that could suppress their cultivation, and they did not want to sever their own cultivation, so they did not enter the starry sky. Although Zhuowen wanted to kill the two of them right now, he knew that they were not weak. However, he knew that these two people were not weaker than him. In fact, they were even stronger than him. With his current cultivation, he had no chance of winning against the two of them. Chapter 36-27. Does fellow Gong have anything else to say? Zhuowen looked at Gong Ji Lu indifferently and asked. Gong Ji Lu did not care about Zhuowen's attitude. Instead, he said with a smile, Fellow Daoist, I have yet to ask your name and which clan you are from. I have a secret mission, so I can't reveal it. As he spoke, Zhuowen no longer paid any attention to Gong Ji Lu. Instead, he threw a formation flag into a remote rock wall and left. There was a monitoring formation in the formation flag. Basically, everything that happened here would be transmitted to Zhuowen by the monitoring formation. Zhuowen did it very discreetly, so Gong Ji Lu and Ni Sai did not notice it. Senior brother, this person really doesn't know what's good for him. We spoke nicely to him, but he kept a cold face. He didn't even tell us his background. He's really unreasonable. Ni Sai's beautiful eyes suddenly turned cold, and she said with an unfriendly expression. Gong Ji Lu narrowed his eyes and said, Haha, because he's lying. This person should be a creature of this starry sky. Ni Sai was stunned. Then, she said in disbelief, Senior brother, are you joking? Although his cultivation doesn't seem to have broken through the heavens, he can use the God-breaking divine power. This should be a sign of self-severing cultivation. Junior sister, because you haven't seen a self-severing cultivator, you don't know what a self-severing cultivator looks like. I once talked to a self-severing cultivator in my clan and observed him carefully. Normally, a self-severing cultivator will still have the aura of the chaotic starry sky around him. This aura is something that one can't get rid of after cultivating and living in the chaotic starry sky all year round. It's the same for you and me, Gong Ji Lu said indifferently. Ni Sai finally reacted and said, Senior brother is right. The aura of the chaotic starry sky on that guy's body is so weak that it's almost negligible. He rarely comes into contact with the chaotic starry sky. Senior brother, why didn't you say so earlier? We could have just rushed in and taken down this ant. At this point, Ni Sai rolled her eyes at Gong Ji Lu with some reproach. Gong Ji Lu's eyes became very serious and said, Junior sister, have you heard of a person who can have the God-breaking divine power before breaking through the heavens? Ni Sai was stunned. Then, she thought about it and shook her head seriously. This situation doesn't exist in the 100 domains, but we have encountered it. What does this mean? Speaking up to this point, Gongji Lu's eyes turned fiery as he continued, "This kid must have a huge secret. Otherwise, he couldn't cultivate the God-breaking divine power in advance. This is our chance." Ni Sai's beautiful eyes lit up, and she rebuked, "Senior brother, since you've thought of so many things, why don't you do it? Why didn't we just kill him? So what if he has cultivated the God-breaking divine power? You and I can take him down if we work together. Then Lu's to say he was not to be underestimated. He Lu, he not want to kill to fight. We then, we Lu you and Lu him ya you Lu. Moreover, we can't immediately sever our cultivation because of this. That would be purely courting death. Ni said, who was to die it's use you Lu, and be to die, a, to s in, to be a was to be in that state ases in ses. Ni Sai sighed dejectedly. She knew Gongji Lu was right. They really couldn't do anything to Zhuowen. Damn it. Ni Sai said unwillingly. But, junior sister, don't worry. Although we can't do anything, Golden Starry Sky can. I have inquired about Golden Starry Sky and learned that it is very powerful. There are many fifth blight powerhouses, and several heaven-breaking realm powerhouses have appeared. Once the powerhouses of Golden Starry Sky take action, this kid won't be able to escape. Gongji Lu said proudly. Senior brother, have you already contacted Golden Starry Sky? Ni Sai's eyes lit up. Haha, yesterday, I used the communicator Yang gave me, and I really got in touch with the person in charge of Golden Starry Sky. After hearing that I came from the 100 domains, the Golden Starry Sky's Divine Master personally contacted me. They are now providing the coordinates of Golden Starry Sky. When the coordinates are sent, we will go to Golden Starry Sky and help them perfect the teleportation formation as soon as possible to speed up their invasion of the Wanderer Starry Sky. At that time, we don't even need to do anything. Whether it is desireless or that and just now, they will all be obediently sent to us. Gongji Lu put his hands behind his back, and a confident smile appeared on his face. Ni Sai's beautiful eyes were bright as she looked at Gongji Lu with admiration and praised, as expected of senior brother, you are indeed astute. After Zhuowen left Heaven's Moat, his expression was not good. The conversation between Gongji Lu and Ni Sai in the depths of Heaven's Moat was received by his monitoring formation. Therefore, he was now very clear about the content of their conversation. These two guys, Zhuowen's eyes were cold, and at the same time, he felt a sense of urgency. He knew that he had to improve his strength as soon as possible. He didn't know how strong Golden Starry Sky was, but from the conversation between Gongji Lu and Ni Sai, he knew that Golden Starry Sky was much stronger than Wanderer Starry Sky. Once the army of Golden Starry Sky arrived, it would really be difficult to resist with the strength of Wanderer Starry Sky. No matter how strong he was, could he fight against an entire army of Starry Sky by himself? Unless he could break the heavens in a short time and control the power of this Starry Sky, then he would be able to turn the tide and save the living beings in Wanderer Starry Sky. Otherwise, if Wanderer Starry Sky was occupied, he would be forced to leave. Gongji Lu and Ni Sai were eyeing him covetously outside. If he left, he would immediately encounter the two of them. I hope the primordial providence can really bring me benefit. Zhuowen took a deep breath and accelerated the speed of the space-time roulette. He knew that the only way for him to improve his strength quickly was to use the mysterious primordial providence. When Zhuowen arrived at the border of the monster territory, he found that Xu Yuan and Dong Huangtai had been waiting there for a long time. Lord Shuo. Xu Yuan and Dong Huangtai looked at Zhuowen with complicated gazes. They clasped their hands and bowed respectfully. Their attitude was much more formal than before Zhuowen left. Why are the two of you so polite? You actually came here to welcome me in person. Zhuowen was speechless. Dong Huangtai and Xu Yuan looked at each other and smiled bitterly. Dong Huangtai said with a wry smile, things are different now. Lord Shuo's fame is now known throughout the Starry Sky. How dare we disrespect you? Zhuowen was stunned and immediately understood that the two of them must have heard about his battle with Bing Hui in the heaven accessing place, so their attitudes had changed so much. Zhuowen didn't care about this, and it was a good thing for him. After all, His current fame was enough to deter the two of them and make them not dare to act recklessly. By the way, how has Chen Shui been in Monster Saint Palace recently? Zhuowen asked casually. Chapter 36-28. What's wrong? Zhuowen noticed the strange expressions on their faces and couldn't help but frown as he asked. Donghuang Taiyi and Xu Yuan both smiled and said, "The Saintess is doing well in the Demon Saint Palace. Also, we have to congratulate Master Zhuo." "Oh, what's there to congratulate?" Zhuowen was confused. Donghuang Taiyi pondered for a moment and said, "The Saintess is pregnant." Zhuowen's body stiffened and trembled violently. His eyes shined brightly as he grabbed Donghuang Taiyi's shoulders and said, "What did you just say? Say it again." Donghuang Taiyi's face turned pale. Zhuowen was too strong, and he almost knelt in front of Zhuowen. "Sorry. I was too excited and couldn't control my strength." Zhuowen quickly took back his hands. His face was full of smiles. He was too excited. Although his cultivation was only at the early stage of the fourth blight, he wasn't an ordinary fourth blight expert. He cultivated the shattered divine force. His strength was far beyond the fourth blight and was comparable to a peak fifth blight expert. Donghuang Taiyi was only at the early stage of the fifth blight, and the gap between him and Zhuowen was obvious. That was why he was so embarrassed in front of Zhuowen. "It's okay, it's normal." Donghuang Taiyi squeezed out a smile that was uglier than crying. On the other hand, Xu Yuan's eyes were filled with dread. Next, Donghuang Taiyi and Xu Yuan brought Zhuowen to the Demon Saint Palace. However, Zhuowen couldn't wait any longer and directly used his divine ability to rush, leaving the two behind and arriving at the Demon Saint Palace as soon as possible. Master Zhuo. At the entrance of the Saintess Hall, two maids respectfully bowed to Zhuowen. Zhuowen turned a deaf ear to him and rushed into the Saint Lady Temple. "Where's your Saintess?" Inside the hall, a beautiful woman stood in the middle of the hall and smiled at Zhuowen. Zhuowen knew this woman. She was Mu Chunshue's most shrewd maid, Hongyu. "Master Zhuo, the Saintess has been waiting for you for a long time. She's in the palace right now. I'll bring you there." Hongyu brought Zhuowen through a long corridor and walked towards the palace. Zhuowen's heart became nervous as he slowly followed Hongyu. Creak. Hongyu opened the palace door, bowed to Zhuowen, and stood by the door. Zhuowen entered the palace. At the end of the palace was a luxurious bed. At the end of the palace, there was a beautiful bed. On the bed, there was a beautiful figure lying quietly. Chen. Zhuowen. He. Zhuowen sat by the bed and gently stroked Mu Chen Shue's hair. His consciousness had already discovered a slight bulge in Mu Chunshue's abdomen. He could even feel the weak pulse in Mu Chunshue's stomach. In that pulse, there was a strong life force. Zhuowen sat by the bed for a long time. Finally, Mu Chunshue's jade-like hand on the bed moved slightly. Then she slowly opened her eyes. When she saw Zhuowen, she was first stunned. Then her beautiful eyes filled with gentleness as she hugged Zhuowen. "Chen Shui, you. When did you find out?" Zhuowen hugged Mu Chunshue and said in a soft voice. Mu Chunshue's cheeks turned red as she said in a soft voice, "Not long after you left, I began to have a reaction. Then I found the best doctor in Monster Saint Palace to take my pulse. Only then did I know that I had a pregnancy pulse." Saying this, Mu Chunshue rubbed her slightly swollen stomach. Her brows slightly knit as she said, "Ever since I had a pregnancy, it has already been 6 years. The changes in my stomach are not very obvious. The doctor once said that the child in my stomach is a divine fetus. It is said that it needs 5 years of gestation and 10 years of pregnancy. It will take a total of 15 years to give birth to it." Zhuowen also rubbed Mu Chunshue's stomach. His divine sense had already checked Mu Chunshue's body before. The fetus in Mu Chunshue's body was indeed extraordinary. Before it was born, it already contained an extremely strong life force. He was very clear that at his level of cultivation, his bloodline would become extremely powerful. The starting point of his offspring would also be very high, and the way it was conceived would be different from mortals. Mortals could give birth to a baby after 10 months of pregnancy. But for an existence like Zhuowen, His bloodline was too strong. His offspring would also be extraordinary. 10 years of pregnancy was not a strange thing. For the next few days, Zhuowen accompanied Mu Chunxue in the Saintess Hall every day. It was rare for the young couple to quietly stay together. They were just like an ordinary couple, loving each other. But their days were soon interrupted by the arrival of Donghuang Taiyi and Xu Yuan. Donghuang Taiyi and Xu Yuan came to ask Zhuowen when to set off to search for the primordial providence. In the garden of the Saintess Hall, Zhuowen stood in the pavilion and quietly looked at the water left on the rockery. His brows were slightly furrowed and he was lost in thought. Mu Chunxue slowly walked from the front yard and looked at Zhuowen, who was in a daze. She said softly, "Husband, you also said that the starry sky is about to encounter a great change. Now is a critical time. You must increase your strength in a short period of time. Only you have the ability to turn the tide in the face of such a great change. You don't have to worry too much about me. Just search for the primordial providence with Donghuang Taiyi and Xu Yuan." Zhuowen turned around and looked at his gentle wife in front of him. His eyes were filled with tenderness as he said, "I know this, but I am just worried about you. After all, you are pregnant and need someone to take care of you the most at this time. If I am not by your side, I will never feel at ease." Mu Chunxue leaned on Zhuowen's chest and said softly, "Don't you have the great world? During this period of time, I will wait for you in the great world. As long as you have time, you can come to the great world to accompany me. This way, I won't delay you and you won't have to worry about me." Zhuowen slapped his forehead and kissed Mu Chunxue fiercely. He said, "Look at my brain, why didn't I think of this before?" The next day, Zhuowen took Mu Chunxue and Mu Chunshue's personal maid, Hong Yu, into the great world. And in the great world, he built a palace specially for Mu Chunxue to live in. When Xiao He heard that Mu Chunxue was pregnant, he mocked Zhuowen fiercely and made a fuss about being the godfather of the future child. Zhuowen was speechless and gave Xiao He a chestnut. Xiao He cried out in pain and finally became more obedient. However, Xiao He was still very happy. He was even happier than his biological father. Every day, he revolved around Mu Chunxue and boasted shamelessly that he wanted to fulfill his duty as a godfather. Zhuowen and Mu Chunxue both smiled and agreed to give Xiao He the status of godfather in the future. After making arrangements for Mu Chunxue, Zhuowen left the great world and came to the towering gate of the Demon Saint Palace. At this moment, in front of the gate, a huge flying divine tool was parked. Donghuang Taiyi and Xu Yuan were standing on the deck. When the two saw Zhuowen arrive, they bowed respectfully. Chapter 36-29. Zhuowen stood on the deck and looked at the huge mountain range in front of him. His eyes were filled with emotion. The huge mountain range in front of him was the place where Pangu had fallen. It was here that he had received the complete inheritance of Pangu and the help of the sky-splitting axe. At this moment, 2/3 of the endless mountain range had already turned pitch black. It didn't look like a normal mountain range at all. In the darkness, there was an aura of destruction. Zhuowen knew that it was the aura of the chaos beasts. Under the mountain range, there were many chaos beasts sealed. Back then, Zhuowen still remembered that only 1/10 of the huge mountain range had been invaded by chaos beasts. Now, 2/3 of the mountain range had been invaded. It was obvious that the power of the seal had weakened. The chaos beasts were about to break free. The destination of the route in the gold leaf is here. But the aura of this mountain range is a little strange. At that moment, Donghuang Taiyi held the gold leaf in his right hand. The gold leaf was surging with golden light. It turned into a golden light and pointed at the mountain range in front of him. However, Donghuang Taiyi looked very serious. He could feel that the mountain range in front of him was not simple. Especially the 2/3 of the mountain range that was tainted by the strange dark energy. It gave him a strong sense of danger. This is the aura of the chaos beast. Could it be that there are many chaos beasts sealed in this mountain range? Xu Yuan frowned slightly and said with an ugly expression. After all, he came from the 100 domains. Although his cultivation was average, He was much more knowledgeable than Donghuang Taiyi and Zhuowen. That was why he could tell that there were chaos beasts sealed in the mountain range. Mr. Xu Yuan, what are chaos beasts? Donghuang Taiyi was confused. Xu Yuan patiently explained everything about chaos beasts to Donghuang Taiyi. Only then did Donghuang Taiyi look enlightened. It turns out that when this part of the cosmos was first created, chaos beasts were basically living in the cosmos. If it weren't for Pangu splitting open the sky, wouldn't our starry sky have remained in chaos? Donghuang Taiyi said with a solemn look. You can say that. Every evolution of the starry sky requires the sacrifice of an ancestor in order to succeed. Xu Yuan sighed. The destination of the gold leaf seems to be the depths of this mountain range. Are we going to barge into the place where the chaos beast is sealed? Donghuang Taiyi lowered his head and looked at the instructions on the gold leaf. Chaos beasts were not weak, and there were many of them in the mountains. Even if his cultivation level was at the 5th decay, there was a high chance that he would die if he ventured deep into the mountains. It's all right. If you wear this bracelet, the chaos beasts will not attack us. Xu Yuan took out 3 bracelets and handed 2 of them to Zhuowen and Donghuang Taiyi. The bracelet was made of some kind of black jade. Its surface emitted a faint light, and when one touched the black jade, they could feel a warm feeling. This is. Donghuang Taiyi looked at Xu Yuan and asked. This bracelet is made from the crystal core of a chaos beast. It contains the aura of a chaos beast. Although chaos beasts have eyes and ears, they do not have sight or hearing. They rely entirely on their auras to differentiate between their own kind and the other kind. With this bracelet made from the crystal core, we will be covered by the aura of the chaos beast. When that happens, the chaos beast will treat us as its own kind. Xu Yuan smiled and said. Zhuowen looked at the bracelet in his hand carefully. He could feel the aura of a chaos beast from it. Wearing such a bracelet, he could indeed fool his way through the chaos beasts. Then let's enter the mountains now. Xu Yuan put on the bracelet and said eagerly. Wait. Zhuowen stopped Xu Yuan. Seeing the confusion on Xu Yuan and Donghuang Taiyi's faces, Zhuowen said in a low voice, I'm afraid the seal in this mountain range will not last for long. We don't know how long it will take for us to search for the original Qi Providence. If the chaos beasts break out of the seal during this time, it will be a great disaster for the universe. So before we enter, I will set up a huge seal in this mountain range, just in case. Xu Yuan frowned and said, Lord Shui, I know you know some formations. But chaos beasts are not ordinary. If you want to stop them, you will need at least a half-step heaven breaker seal. Xu Yuan and Donghuang Taiyi had heard that Zhuowen's formation skills were not bad, but they did not think that Zhuowen's formation skills were at the half-step heaven breaker level. They also did not think that Zhuowen's formation skills were already at the first stage of the heaven breaker level. So, the two of them thought that Zhuowen setting up a formation here was purely a waste of time. It's better than nothing. Zhuowen's expression was cold. He did not care about Xu Yuan and Donghuang Taiyi's confusion. He landed outside the mountain range, took out the formation flags, and set up the formation seriously. Xu Yuan and Donghuang Taiyi had no choice but to land near Zhuowen. Neither of them knew anything about formations, so they could not understand what kind of formation Zhuowen was setting up. After watching for a while, the two of them lost interest. They each found a quiet place and sat down cross-legged to meditate. Zhuowen spent a total of 3 months in the periphery of the mountain range before he finally finished setting up the seal formation properly. This seal was the combination of Zhuowen's best formation skills. Its level had already reached the first stage of the heaven breaker level. At the same time, Zhuowen also added all kinds of powerful killing formations to the seal. If the chaos beasts really broke free, this formation would be enough to stop them. Then, with all kinds of killing formations, they would slowly exterminate the chaos beasts. After setting up the formation, Zhuowen sent a message to Xu Yuan and Donghuang Taiyi. Not long after, the two of them came from 2 different directions. Donghuang Taiyi, use the golden leaf to guide the way, Zhuowen said calmly. Donghuang Taiyi and Xu Yuan looked excited. Donghuang Taiyi took out the golden leaf. Another golden ray of light shot out of the golden leaf, heading deep into the mountain range. The three of them followed the golden ray of light and went deep into the mountain range. In the mountain range, Zhuowen once again felt that empty feeling. It was as if his 5 senses were slipping away. However, just as this feeling surged in his heart, the bracelet in his hand surged out black fog and covered his entire body. Then, Zhuowen no longer felt that empty feeling. His 5 senses also returned to normal. "Young Master Shu Yuan, your bracelet is really useful," Donghuang Taiyi said happily. Chapter 36:30. After a short while, the three of them arrived at the center of the mountain range. There stood a towering mountain. This mountain was the tallest mountain in the mountain range. The entire mountain was pitch black and the mountain was filled with the smell of death. At this moment, the end of the golden ray of light was pointing at a rock wall at the center of the foot of the mountain. Zhuowen and the other two noticed that the rock wall was about 10 feet wide. It was extremely smooth, like jade, which was a stark contrast to the other parts of the mountain range. Zhuowen's divine sense could clearly sense that the spirit arrays in this area were much weaker than those in other areas. As long as he punched it, he could easily shatter it. However, he did not do so. This was because the aura he felt from the rock wall was similar to the aura of the golden light. This should be the door to the inner part of the mountain range. "Let me break it." Shu Yuan's eyes lit up. She took a step forward and was about to break the rock wall. However, Zhuowen stopped her. Instead, he said to Donghuang Taiyi, "Brother Donghuang, place the golden light on the rock wall and take a look." Donghuang Taiyi was stunned. He immediately placed the golden light in the middle of the rock wall. Then, they realized that the golden light was like a brand, sinking into the rock wall. Then, the rock wall, which was about 10 feet wide, started to have complicated golden inscriptions, which completely covered the rock wall. The golden inscriptions surged. Then, the three of them realized that the rock wall had started to become transparent. They saw that behind the rock wall was a long tunnel. There is indeed another world in this mountain range. Shu Yuan and Donghuang Taiyi were pleasantly surprised. Zhuowen put his right hand into the rock wall. He realized that the rock wall was really transparent. His right hand went in smoothly. Then, Zhuowen took a step inside. Donghuang Taiyi and Shu Yuan did not want to be left behind. They followed closely behind. After they entered, the rock wall behind them recovered. Then, the golden light peeled off and fell into Donghuang Taiyi's hand. It seems that the golden light is the key to entering the inner part of the mountain range. Donghuang Taiyi exclaimed. "Be careful. There are many chaotic beasts in this mountain range. Don't alarm them," Zhuowen cautioned as he walked deeper into the tunnel. Not long after, the three of them arrived at the end of the passageway. There stood a pitch-black door. The surface of the door was engraved with the carvings of exotic beasts. These strange beast statues were shaped like dogs. They had long fur and 4 legs. They had eyes but couldn't see, couldn't walk, and 2 ears but couldn't smell. It had an abdomen but no internal organs. It had intestines but was straight. Food flowed through it. It was the image of a chaos beast. This is the door of the chaos beasts. Only chaos beasts can enter and exit this door without opening it. We have bracelets made from the crystal cores of chaos beasts. We have the aura of chaos beasts on us. We can enter directly. Without waiting for Zhuowen and Donghuang Taiyi, Shu Yuan dashed into the door of the primal chaos beasts. That pitch-black door was like an illusion. Just like that, Shu Yuan disappeared before the door. Zhuowen coldly snorted. This Shu garden left in such a hurry that it made Zhuowen feel strange. He immediately rushed in. Bang! However, just as Zhuowen was about to enter the door, the bracelet in his hand suddenly broke and he was blocked outside the door. Zhuowen took a few steps back and his eyes narrowed. "Master Zhuo, my bracelet broke too? What's going on?" Donghuang Taiyi hurried to Zhuowen's side, holding the broken bracelet in his hand. "We've been set up." Zhuowen's eyes flashed coldly. He knew that Shu Yuan had set them up. Zhuoan took out Shu Yuan's spiritual imprint and realized that it had disappeared. His connection to Shu Yuan had also completely disappeared. He didn't think that Shu Yuan had died. She must have used some method to transfer her spiritual imprint. Shu Yuan alone wouldn't be able to do this. The only person who could do this was the young master behind Shu Yuan. Creak. At the same time, the pitch-black door in front of them started to open slowly. Terrifying cries and howls could be heard from within. Swoosh. Suddenly, from a small gap in the door, a black shadow shot out like a bolt of black lightning and charged toward Zhuoan. This black shadow opened its ferocious mouth and mercilessly bit Zhuoan's neck. Zhuoan sent out a slap, knocking the shadow to the ground. Only then did he see the true face of this black shadow. It was a chaos beast. Zhuoan didn't hesitate to stomp the chaos beast into dust. However, he did not relax because of this. This was because he could see through the gap of the door that behind the door, a terrifying army of chaotic beasts was squeezing out of the door and rushing towards Zhuoan. All the chaos beasts' eyes were filled with murderous intent. So many chaos beasts. Donghuang Taiyi's expression changed. Although most of these chaos beasts were around the first decay and some were only Master Tongtian, there were too many. Just the number of chaos beasts behind the door was endless. There were at least tens of thousands of them. And this was only the tip of the iceberg. Deep within the pitch-black door, there were definitely more chaos beasts. With so many chaos beasts, even if he was a 5th decay elite, he wouldn't be able to kill them all. In the end, he would be killed by these chaos beasts. Brother Donghuang, you should leave this place first. Zhuoan slapped another chaos beast to death and said to Donghuang Taiyi without looking back. Donghuang Taiyi's eyes flashed, but he looked determined. I'm already here. How can I back off? As the saying goes, wealth comes from danger. With such a great opportunity in front of me, I won't let it go so easily. Then you might die. At that time, you'll have nothing left. Zhuoan said coldly. Master Zhuo, what about you? Donghuang Taiyi hesitated. I'm stronger than you. Moreover, it's much stronger, but I can't guarantee your life. Zhuoan said indifferently. Donghuang Taiyi's face turned pale. He knew that Zhuoan's words were very obvious. Even if he went in with Zhuoan wouldn't care about his life or death, let alone protect him. But don't worry. When you get out, give me the gold leaf. I promise that if I get primordial luck, I will leave a small part of it for you. I will give you a great opportunity, Zhuoan said lightly. Donghuang Taiyi's eyes lit up. He cupped his hands and thanked Zhuoan before leaving. Zhuoan followed closely behind Donghuang Taiyi. When Donghuang Taiyi left using the gold leaf, Zhuoan waved his right hand and kept the gold leaf. The wall returned to its original state. Rumble. At this moment, the pitch-black door at the end of the tunnel was completely opened, and a series of ear-piercing cries and howls whistled out like a gale. The entire passageway started to tremble. Countless chaos beasts were like a black flood as they rushed towards Jiangyi. Zhuoan stood quietly by the wall, looking at the chaos beasts rushing towards him. His body was glowing with a purple light, like a purple sun. Instantly, the chaos beasts completely surrounded Zhuoan. The chaos beasts fought to tear Zhuoan apart, trying to tear Zhuoan into pieces. Bang! Chapter 36-31. In an instant, Zhuoan rushed through the door, and all the beasts of chaos in the passage were defeated by Zhuoan. Damn it, there are so many beasts of chaos. When Zhuoan rushed through the door, his expression became even uglier. This was because he saw even more chaos beasts than he had seen in the passageway. These beasts of chaos did not know what death was. They only knew how to kill. When they saw Zhuoan, they rushed over crazily. The purple aura around Zhuoan continued to rise, manifesting countless purple blades. All the chaos beasts that pounced on him were basically cut into pieces by the purple blades formed by the purple aura. Since advancing to the 4th decay, Zhuoan found that the amount of broken divine power in his body had changed, and his recovery ability was very strong. Especially in this sealed land, He could feel that the chaotic energy here was more vigorous than the chaotic starry sky in the heaven-accessing secret land. The speed at which he consumed broken divine power was much slower than the speed at which he recovered. In the process of recovery, the excess chaotic energy was constantly absorbed and refined by him, turning into more powerful broken divine power. What a good place. I'm afraid this is a border of the wandering starry sky. There must be something good here to have such a strong chaotic energy, Zhuowen roared, and the power of the primordial technique surged around him. He walked around the sealed land leisurely. The beasts of chaos that were constantly sweeping in from all directions were nothing to him. Then, he began to size up the sealed land. He noticed that the sealed land was a space similar to the starry sky, but it was dark inside, and there was no light from the stars. In addition to the seemingly endless beasts of chaos, there were piles of black stones suspended in the air. These black stones were very hard, and even the sharp teeth of the beasts of chaos could not break them. Zhuowen stopped on a rather large piece of black rock, but his divine sense was unscrupulously unleashed. He was looking for Shu Yuan. She dared to trick him. If he found her, Zhuowen would not let her go easily. However, what made Zhuowen frown was that he did not find Shu Yuan within the range of his divine sense. Zhuowen began to go deeper and deeper. 3 days later, he discovered that there was a circular abyss in the center of the sealed land. Inside the abyss, an extremely dense chaotic energy was erupting. He knew that this place should be the origin of the chaotic energy in the sealed land. In the depths of the abyss, he saw a huge black millstone. The millstone spun slowly, and with every revolution, it spewed out a large amount of chaotic energy. There was a figure standing on the millstone. He turned his head around and glanced at Zhuo when a strange smile appeared on his face. Shu Yuan. Zhuowen's gaze was cold. He exterminated the surrounding chaos beasts and charged into the deep abyss. Very quickly, Zhuowen broke through the encirclement of the chaos beasts and landed on the millstone. What a powerful pressure! Standing on the millstone, Zhuowen immediately felt a terrifying force acting on his entire body, causing him to slow down. Zhuowen's face turned gloomy. With such a powerful pressure, it would not be easy for him to leave the millstone and walk in the air. He also noticed that the chaos beasts that were chasing after him did not dare to get close to the millstone. They circled a few thousand meters above it. Zhuowen, it seems that I have underestimated you. Originally, I thought that the chaos beasts could stop you for a while, but I did not expect you to catch up so quickly. Shu Yuan stood where she was and looked at Zhuowen calmly. She was not as frightened as Zhuowen had expected. Instead, she wore a strange smile. You are not Shu Yuan. Who are you? Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and stared at Shu Yuan, who had suddenly become unfamiliar. He could feel that Shu Yuan's aura was completely different. It was as if she was a different person. Zhuowen remembered that the spiritual imprint that Shu Yuan had left on him had lost its effect. He thought for a while and said seriously, "Are you the person behind him? Did you kill Shu Yuan?" Haha. You are very smart. You actually thought of me so quickly. However, you were the one who killed Shu Yuan. If his spiritual imprint had not been controlled by you, I would not have erased his spiritual imprint and controlled him with a trace of my spiritual imprint. Shu Yuan laughed sinisterly. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and looked at Shu Yuan cautiously. He sized up the millstone beneath his feet and said as if he understood something, "This millstone is the primeval providence that you were talking about." He felt a unique energy from the millstone. This energy was very unfamiliar to him, but it was very powerful. It was much more powerful than he had imagined. You guessed right. This millstone is the model of the primeval providence of your starry sky. It is the lifeline of your starry sky. However, this thing is already mine. If you don't resist, I will not kill you. Instead, I will reward you with some primeval providence. Shu Yuan said indifferently. What arrogance. The Shu Yuan you control is only at the peak of the third blight. Can you stop me? Besides, even if you come in person, you have to weigh your own weight. Zhuowen sneered. Shu Yuan laughed and said sarcastically, Zhuowen, do you think that you are invincible in this starry sky just because you defeated Bing Hui? Let me tell you the truth. As long as you haven't broken through the heavens, You will always be an ant in my eyes. If Bing Hui had not suppressed his cultivation, it would have been as easy for him to crush you as an ant. And it will only be easier for me to crush you than for Bing Hui. Zhuowen's eyes flashed with a cold purple light. Suddenly, a purple saber appeared behind Xu Yuan as if it had teleported and stabbed into his back. Poochie. The purple saber pierced through Xu Yuan's back and blood gushed out like a fountain. Xu Yuan was calm. He stood in place and ignored the blood gushing out of his chest. Zhuo Wen, Xu Yuan is already dead. Xu Yuan is nothing more than a walking corpse now. Even if you cut him into pieces, I will not lose anything. Xu Yuan laughed maniacally. Beneath his feet, a spirit design appeared. Strange symbols were densely packed within the formation. These symbols formed a ring shape that rapidly rotated. Under the effect of the formation, the black millstone began to be gradually eaten away. It was as if it had disappeared into thin air, starting from the corner where Xu Yuan was. I will kindly accept the prime vow providence. Zhuowen, if fate wills it, we will meet again in the future. However, I feel that we will never meet again. The prime vow providence of your starry sky has been taken away. Your starry sky's providence is exhausted and your lifespan is running out. You will enter the end of the world ahead of time, and you have also lost the hope of breaking through the heavens in this starry sky. Moreover, the primordial chaos paths that lead to the 100 domains of the outer realms are formed by the prime vow providence. You will not have the chance to enter the 100 domains of the outer realms to continue growing. Your fate is already sealed. There is no hope. Also, after saying so much, I still haven't introduced myself. My name is Luke. Although we may not have the chance to meet again, you can remember my name. Chapter 36-32. At that moment, the array was spinning continuously. In just a short period of time, it had already swallowed 1/10 of the millstone. Zhuowen immediately threw out array flags, intending to use his array skills to forcefully break the array. Bang bang bang. However, to Zhuowen's horror, the moment his array flags came into contact with the array, they all shattered and exploded. What a terrifying array! Zhuowen's expression was ugly. He knew that the array's level had already exceeded his array skills. He could not break it at all. Brute force defeats 10. I will destroy you directly. Zhuowen's gaze was fierce as he pointed his right sword finger at the void. In the void behind him, a long purple river surged out like a dragon and crashed into the array. Hong Meng, Lifebreaker, whoosh. To Zhuowen's horror, the moment the purple river landed on the array, it was also shattered into pieces. Zhuowen groaned and could not help but take a few steps back. At that moment, the array had already swallowed 1/5 of the millstone. The millstone, which was originally spinning continuously, slowed down due to the devouring of the formation. A terrifying vibration came from the huge millstone. Waves of energy surged out, and the entire abyss was thrown into chaos by the terrifying energy ripples. Many of the primal chaos beasts near the deep abyss could not dodge in time. They were hit by the energy shockwaves that spread out. They screamed in pain and exploded into dust. Zhuowen barely stabilized his body. His gaze became more and more serious. He knew that he had to stop the array. If all the primordial providence was swallowed, the universe would become a stranger. 9 Tribulations Sword Array, come out. Zhuowen took a deep breath. He immediately summoned the 9 Tribulations Sword Array from the Great World. 9 divine swords exuded blazing divine light as they rushed out. They intertwined in mid-air, exuding a sharp and terrifying aura. Zhuowen's face was extremely pale. Although he had just broken through to the 4th blight and his strength had transformed again, controlling the 9 Tribulations Sword Array in one go was still a bit difficult. The backlash was not small. However, he could not care so much. He had to stop the array. Otherwise, the entire universe would be finished. Zhuowen bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a mouthful of blood essence, which landed on the 9 Tribulations Sword Array. The 9 Tribulations Sword Array, which was originally very powerful, exploded with an even more terrifying light. Waves of terrifying sword light formed a terrifying storm that swept out. In addition, A golden light surged between Zhuowen's brows. Soul-type sword intents flew out from the depths of his brows. There were a total of 10 of them, which floated around his body. After Zhuowen's breakthrough to the heaven-breaking second blight, the power of soul-type sword intent was far more terrifying than before. If that were to the great of ice, Bing to the great of ice to the ice. Zhuowen had condensed these 10 soul sword intents during this period of time. His soul sword intents was becoming more and more powerful, enough to withstand the power of these 10 soul sword intents. That's not enough. Viciousness appeared in Zhuowen's eyes, and he forcefully condensed soul-type sword intent again. Another soul-type sword intent flew out from between his brows, and Zhuowen spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire face was drained of color. However, he did not stop. He began to desperately condense soul-type sword intent again. 1 or 2, all the way until 5, he finally stopped. His consciousness started to blur, and he had a splitting headache. Holding his head with both hands, he forcefully controlled the 9 tribulation sword array to attack the array. At the same time, the 16 soul-type sword intents floating around him fell on the millstone like a rain of swords. Instantly, sword chi soared into the sky, and the surrounding abyss actually started to collapse under the influence of such terrifying sword chi. It was too terrifying. Even this abyss that had existed since ancient times could not withstand such terrifying sword chi. Bang! Suddenly, the speed of the array's devouring suddenly slowed down, and then it directly stopped. The array spun quickly, mobilizing extremely terrifying energy, and began to resist the soul-type sword intent and the 9 tribulation sword array's attacks. The ripples from the collision between the two were extremely terrifying. Zhuowen had no choice but to take out the golden coffin. He hid in the coffin to avoid the powerful energy ripples from the explosion. Inside the abyss, an unprecedented explosion also erupted. This explosion was too terrifying. When the range spread out, not only the abyss, but the area of several million kilometers around the abyss was completely included. And all the chaos beasts in this area were not spared, dying without a complete corpse. Catcher. Under such a terrifying amount of energy, the formation came to a complete stop, and then it crumbled. When the energy of the explosion completely subsided, a golden coffin slowly approached the center of the abyss, and landed on the broken millstone. Only 2/3 of the millstone was left. The remaining 1/3 had already been transferred away by the array. The coffin opened, and Zhuowen struggled to crawl out from inside, falling to the ground with a plop. Zhuowen smiled bitterly. This could be considered the most serious injury he'd suffered since he'd reached half a step into the heaven-breaking tier. I really didn't expect that young master behind Shu Yuan to actually have such a powerful array. This person's strength is probably much stronger than that senior Gong Kiliu and senior sister. Zhuowen struggled to prop himself up. After taking a healing divine pill, he recuperated for 15 minutes. He threw out array flags one after another, setting up a defensive array around himself. He was too weak now. If the chaos beasts attacked him now, it would really be bad. Fortunately, the explosion just now covered a huge area. The chaos beasts within several million kilometers were almost all wiped out. It would probably take some time for the chaos beasts further away to reach here. This also gave Zhuowen enough time to set up the array. After setting up the half-step breaking heaven-tier defensive array, Zhuowen sat down on the millstone. He continuously absorbed the pure chaos energy spewing out of the millstone. At the same time, he swallowed healing divine pills and circulated the primordial technique, spreading the medicinal power throughout his body to heal his injuries. This time, not only is my physical body seriously injured, but my soul is even more so. While Zhuowen was healing his physical injuries, he had originally planned to use his divine sense to check the condition of his body. However, he discovered that the moment he used his divine sense, he immediately grimaced in pain, as if his head was about to explode. Zhuowen smiled bitterly. The injuries of his physical body were secondary. It wouldn't take long for him to be completely healed. As for his soul, it was much more troublesome. Although his soul was extraordinary, it was also abnormally difficult to recover after being injured. Destroy and rebuild. Just as Zhuowen was vexed, he suddenly remembered this sentence recorded on the third level of the Green Lotus visualization diagram. When he had cultivated the Green Lotus visualization diagram, with his comprehension ability, he had broken through 2 levels in a short time, and his soul had undergone a transformation. However, when he cultivated the third level, he was stuck on the sentence destroy and rebuild. According to the introduction of the third level of the Green Lotus visualization diagram, it was said that before reaching the third level, one's entire soul had to be destroyed. Only then could one successfully enter the third level of the Green Lotus visualization diagram. At that time, how could Zhuowen have used this method of destroying his soul to cultivate the third level of the Green Lotus visualization diagram? The risk was too great. Chapter 36-33. In the chaotic starry sky outside the western boundary of the galaxy, there was a formation flickering in a hidden meteorite. There was a handsome young man standing next to the formation. He had his hands behind his back as he silently looked at the corner of the millstone that had appeared in the formation. The corners of his mouth curled up. I really didn't expect the plan to go so smoothly. The primeval providence of the galaxy has been obtained so easily. With the support of this primeval providence, my cultivation will rise to another level. At least in the heaven-breaking realm, I'm afraid there won't be too many shackles. Luke's face was full of pride as he muttered to himself. Boom! Suddenly, a shocking sound came from the formation, as if some kind of big explosion. And the explosion continued endlessly. Then, dense cracks appeared on the surface of the formation before it finally collapsed in front of Luke's eyes. Luke stared blankly at the broken formation, and he was about to go crazy. The formation he had brought was a top-notch teleportation formation among the second-stage heaven-breaking realm. Even a heaven-breaking second transformation spirit transformation elite wouldn't be able to destroy such a formation in a short time. But now, the formation had collapsed in front of him. Bang! 1/3 of the millstone's corner smashed on the ground, and the dull sound woke Luke up. Luke's expression was complicated. He looked deeply at the broken formation and smiled. I really didn't expect such a heaven-defying creature to exist in the starry sky of the lower realm. This Zhuowen is really interesting. Although Luke's expression was still unwilling, he didn't plan to enter the galaxy himself and fight for the remaining 2/3 of the primeval providence in Zhuowen's hands. He was very clearly aware that he had no chance of winning against Zhuowen in the starry sky unless Zhuowen left the starry sky and fought him in the chaotic starry sky. Zhuowen was obviously not a fool and naturally wouldn't make such a stupid decision. Forget it. 1/3 of the primeval providence is enough for me. It's time to return to the Hushu realm. Luke shook his head, took out a talisman, and crushed it. His entire body turned into countless specks of light and disappeared among the meteorites. He had more important things to do. This time, he had been delayed in the galaxy for too long. The third level of the Green Lotus visualization diagram is really effective. Zhuowen sat cross-legged on the millstone. When he began to visualize the Green Lotus with his shattered soul, he discovered that his soul was easily mobilized and condensed into green lotuses. This was especially true for those divine souls that had been torn apart. Their speed of condensing green lotuses was even faster. The third level of the Green Lotus visualization diagram was called 10,000 green lotuses bloom everywhere. The cultivator had to visualize 10,000 green lotuses in their spirit. If he had a complete divine soul, visualizing the 10,000-petaled lotus would definitely take a lot of time and effort. However, once your soul is shattered into countless fragments, it will be much easier to visualize the 10,000-petaled lotus. When Zhuowen visualized the azure lotuses, he was actually visualizing all the soul fragments together. Moreover, they were independently condensing azure lotuses that did not interfere with each other. Zhuowen's divine soul was severely damaged because he had forcefully condensed the divine soul sword essence. However, cultivating the third level of the Green Lotus visualization diagram was the best opportunity. Half a year later, Zhuowen finally managed to condense 10,000 green lotuses in his divine soul. As for the injuries to his divine soul, during the process of condensing green lotuses over the past half a year, he had recovered quite a bit. Although his divine soul was still in pain, he could already use his divine thought. Zhuowen opened his eyes. He saw that the outside of the formation was already covered by a dense crowd of chaos beasts. The chaos beasts crowded outside the formation greedily. They attacked as if they could not wait to rush into the formation and tear Zhuowen into countless pieces. Zhuowen heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he had the foresight to set up a formation around him in advance. Otherwise, he was really worried that the chaos beasts would attack him without regard for their lives. If that happened, he would be in a terrible situation. After all, the millstone was missing a corner now, and its power was greatly reduced. This abyss was no longer as terrifying as it was at the beginning. The stronger chaos beasts could also easily approach this place. When the 10,000 green lotuses become one, my divine soul will transform again. At that time, my divine soul will transform to the height of the heaven-crushing 3 transformations. However, I don't know how much time it will take to do that. Zhuowen looked inside his divine soul, and his eyes revealed a look of understanding. After condensing 10,000 green lotuses, his divine soul became much stronger again. Now, he estimated that he was close to the late stage of the heaven-crushing 2nd transformation. Moreover, he did not need to do anything at all. The 10,000 green lotuses would attract each other and fuse together. This required a rather long process. After his divine soul recovered, Zhuowen's attention shifted to the millstone beneath him. He could feel that the primitive destiny contained in this millstone was extremely abundant and surging. Not only did the primitive destiny contain extremely pure energy, but it also contained the aura of some kind of mysterious destiny. Zhuowen pressed his right hand lightly on the millstone. He started to activate the primordial technique, and easily absorbed the surging energy in the millstone into his body. Moreover, to his pleasant surprise, this energy was very pure. He only needed to absorb it slightly, and he did not even need to refine it. After circulating in his meridians, it transformed into shattered divine power, and fused into his body very well. Apart from that, he faintly sensed that his aura of destiny seemed to have undergone a slight change after absorbing this energy. Although this change was very small, Zhuowen still noticed it. After all, he had once cultivated the secret of heavenly divination, and he also dabbled in this kind of profound level of destiny. Thus, he could acutely sense any change in his destiny. Moreover, he also knew that this change in destiny was not a disadvantage to him, but a benefit. Thinking of this, Zhuowen summoned Xiao He and Mu Chunxue from the outside world. This primitive destiny was really too amazing, and he naturally planned to share it with Xiao He and Mu Chunxue. Damn! This is really good stuff. With this primeval fate, we'll be in control of the strongest fate in this part of the starry sky. There are a lot of benefits. After listening to Zhuowen's introduction, Xiao He's eyes lit up. Without waiting for Zhuowen to continue, she rushed to the other side of the millstone and wildly absorbed the energy in the millstone. Chen Shui. With this primitive destiny, our children's potential will surpass ours, and they will definitely become famous figures in the future, Zhuowen said with a smile. Mu Chunxue was as gentle as water, and she also understood Zhuowen's feelings for her. Next, the 3 of them sat on the millstone and began to absorb the primitive destiny. Zhuowen's absorption speed was the fastest among the 3 of them, and his movements were also the largest. Mu Chunxue and Xiao He were both alarmed by the movements of Zhuowen's cultivation. Time gradually passed, and Zhuowen's cultivation gradually increased as he continued to absorb the primitive destiny. In half a year, he advanced to the mid-4th blight. In 2 years, he advanced to the late 4th blight. Chapter 36-34. At this moment, there was still 1/5 of the millstone under him. If he continued to absorb it, it would be enough for him to break through to the 5th blight. However, he didn't do so. His blight was too terrifying. Back then, the 4th blight had almost killed him. He couldn't imagine if the blight that descended when he advanced to the 5th blight would directly strike him to death. He planned to first collect as many things to weaken the blight as possible. After he was sufficiently prepared, he would break through. Of course, after advancing to the peak of the fourth blight, his strength had increased by several times. Now, he didn't take peak fifth blight cultivators seriously at all. When the three pure ones appeared in front of him again, he didn't even need to use his spirit sword intent. He could defeat them with a slap. Xiao Hei and Mu Chunxue had already woken up. Although the primitive providence was a great benefit, their cultivation was relatively ordinary, so the amount of primitive providence they could digest was very limited. Therefore, after reaching the limit of their endurance, the two gave up on absorbing the primitive providence. Kid, we'll return to the great world first. We've absorbed so much primitive providence this time, we should go back and properly digest it. Xiao Hei followed Mu Chunxue to Zhuowen and said. Zhuowen nodded. After putting the two into the great world, he looked at the remaining 1/5 of the millstone. He had originally promised to give a portion of the primitive providence to him, but during this period of time, he had tried many methods, but he couldn't move the millstone at all. He couldn't take it away. Even when he tried to put the millstone into the great world, it ended in failure. He knew that it wasn't that the millstone couldn't be moved, but that he hadn't grasped the method to move it. Didn't the young master behind Shu Yuan use a powerful formation to forcefully move the millstone? Crack, crack, crack. Suddenly, Zhuowen discovered that the broken millstone was moving again. In the center of the millstone, there was a huge groove, and a bright light spewed out from the groove. What surprised Zhuowen even more was that the direction of the light wasn't above the millstone, but below it. He knew very well that below the millstone was the boundary of the universe, which was connected to the chaotic starry sky outside. Ka. The millstone rotated faster and faster, but the surface area of the millstone became smaller and smaller. The energy within the millstone was constantly being absorbed by the grooves in the center of the millstone, rushing into the chaotic starry sky outside. Zhuowen could clearly see that the boundary of the cosmos beneath the millstone had been completely destroyed, and the light had entered the chaotic cosmos and shot to an extremely far distance. An inconceivable thing happened. After the light rushed into the chaotic starry sky, it didn't disappear but continued to condense. Through the solid outline, he could see that this was a huge path. This path was made up of pure light, and it extended into an unknown distance. The millstone had completely disappeared, but the groove was still there. Furthermore, the groove was actually spitting out dense purple energy. This energy, why is it so similar to the primordial grand mist stone? Is this the energy of the primordial grand mist tree? Zhuowen suddenly thought of something. He knew that wandering starry sky was one of the fruits within the primordial Hongmeng tree. Primordial providence was the origin of this starry sky. He finally understood what the groove in the center of the millstone was. That was where the branch of the primordial Hongmeng tree connected to wandering starry sky. At this moment, the purple energy was the feedback from the primordial Hongmeng tree. The purple energy spewed out and immediately surrounded the groove, condensing into a purple vortex. The purple vortex grew bigger and bigger, and it started to surge with a terrifying suction force. Oh no! The moment Zhuowen felt the suction force, all the hair on his body stood on end. Without thinking, he flew towards the abyss. The moment Zhuowen flew out of the formation, the surrounding chaos beasts all bared their fangs and brandished their claws, pouncing on Zhuowen. However, before these chaos beasts could get close to Zhuowen, they were enveloped by a terrifying suction force and immediately fell into the purple vortex below. In the blink of an eye, the surrounding chaos beasts were all sucked into the purple vortex. Zhuowen's divine telekinesis could clearly see that after the chaos beasts fell into the purple vortex, they all exploded and turned into pure energy, which was absorbed by the purple vortex. He felt a chill in his heart. Without further delay, he used all his skills to escape forward. There were still many chaos beasts here, almost endless. Zhuowen took out the golden coffin without hesitation and entered it. He steered the golden coffin and instantly flew back the way he came. The golden coffin was worthy of being a level 2 heaven-breaking flying divine weapon. Under such a terrifying suction force, its speed was still very fast. Zhuowen's divine telekinesis continued to observe the surroundings, but his expression did not look good. The entire sealed land was affected. Countless primordial chaos beasts were sucked in. Although many primordial chaos beasts struggled, their efforts were in vain. After these chaos beasts fell into the purple vortex, they were immediately crushed into powder and turned into pure energy, which was absorbed by the purple vortex. The purple vortex used the chaos beast's power to feed back into the chaotic starry sky outside. It landed on the huge path that led to an unknown destination. Zhuowen had no idea what was happening. Now, he only knew that he had to leave this place as soon as possible. After an hour, Zhuowen finally returned to the pitch-black door. There were no more chaos beasts here. Most of the chaos beasts in the sealed land had been sucked in by the strange purple vortex and became its nutrients. The moment Zhuowen stepped out of the golden coffin, he immediately felt a terrifying force acting on his body. It was as if a hand was grabbing his body and pulling him behind it. Damn it! Zhuowen's expression changed drastically. The primordial technique in his body circulated at high speed and barely managed to resist the pulling force. He struggled to walk toward the path behind the door. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was staggering. After just 10 steps, he was already panting. The broken divine power in his body was being consumed at a terrifying rate. Even he was terrified. Zhuowen had no choice but to take out the chaos gem. As he absorbed the energy from the chaos gem to recover his broken divine power, he forced himself to move forward. When he finally reached the rock wall at the beginning, he had already used up 3 chaos gems. Even Zhuowen was surprised by such a huge consumption. One should know that in the past, he only needed 1 chaos gem to break through. Now, just to resist the terrifying pulling force, he had used up 3 chaos gems. It was obvious how terrifying the pulling force was. When he reached the rock wall, Zhuowen immediately took out the gold leaf and pressed it against the rock wall. The rock wall gradually became transparent. Zhuowen roared and charged out. The moment he left the rock wall, he took the gold leaf down. The rock wall returned to normal. He lay on the ground, panting heavily. Chapter 36-35. Daoist Donghuang, we can't stay here for long. Take me away from here. Zhuowen said to Donghuang Tai with a pale face. He had used up too much energy. His divine telekinesis could sense that the commotion below the mountain range was getting bigger and bigger. The entire mountain range was about to be affected. Donghuang Tai also noticed the commotion below the mountain range. He took out his flying divine artifact and helped Zhuowen onto the deck. Then, he flew out of the mountain range. Not long after the two of them left, an earth-shattering sound came from the mountain range. Then, the huge mountain range exploded with a loud bang. Streaks of blazing purple light swept out like waves. Everything in their path was turned into nothingness. Damn! What terrifying energy! Donghuang Tai looked at the flattened mountain range in shock. Without hesitation, he increased his speed and quickly distanced himself from the mountain range. Donghuang Tai only reacted when he was far enough away. His back was already drenched in cold sweat. Although his cultivation had reached the 5th blight, he was already standing at the peak of this universe. However, the terrifying explosion just now had already surpassed his level. If he was enveloped by the explosion, he would have been blasted into nothingness. At this moment, Zhuowen had already taken out a chaos gem and was quickly absorbing the chaos energy. After consuming an entire chaos gem, Zhuowen's face became slightly rosier. His body had finally recovered a portion of the shattered divine power. Lord Shuo, what's going on? Why is there such a terrifying explosion? Donghuang Tai came to Zhuowen's side and looked at the mountain range that was enveloped in the explosion with a puzzled expression. His heart was cold. I'm not very sure either, Zhuowen shook his head. He was still confused. He did not know why the primordial chaos tree had suddenly emerged with that mysterious purple energy. Was it to blow up the mountain range? Zhuowen felt that things were not that simple. Lord Shuo, did your trip go smoothly? Donghuang Tai rubbed his hands and looked at Zhuowen hopefully. Zhuoan had promised him that if he could find the primordial providence in the mountain range, he would definitely have a share. Seeing Donghuang Taiyi's obvious hint, Zhuoan smiled bitterly in his heart. He did intend to bring a portion of the primordial providence to Donghuang Taiyi. However, things did not go as he wished. He could not bring the primordial providence with him as it was absorbed by the groove. And the groove had mutated. He could only escape in a sorry state. Zhuowen sighed softly and told Donghuang Taiyi everything that had happened in the sealed grounds. Donghuang Taiyi's face. After all, you did your best. After all, you've done your best. Zhuowen looked apologetic. He took out a divine pill and gave it to Donghuang Taiyi. The moment Donghuang Taiyi took the primordial providence pill, his right hand trembled, and his shoulders sank as if he was carrying something heavy. He was shocked because the primordial providence pill's medicinal power almost made him lose his grip on it. What kind of powerful medicinal strength was this? Lord Zhuo, is this a heaven-breaking divine pill? Donghuang Taiyi thought of something and stared at Zhuowen. Zhuowen nodded. This pill is called the 7 Life Energy Recovery Pill. It's a first-order heaven-breaking divine pill. Its main effect is recovery. It also has a small healing effect. Donghuang Taiyi was so excited that he almost fell down. He looked at the primordial providence pill in his hand with a burning gaze. It was actually a heaven-breaking divine pill. This was the first time he had seen a divine pill of this level. No wonder it had such terrifying medicinal power. Take this pill as my compensation to you. However, this primordial providence pill is of a much higher grade than yours. I suggest you mix this pill with a large amount of clear water and dilute it into a medicinal liquid. Then, take a small drop when you're injured or exhausted. Zhuowen reminded him. The 7 Life Energy Recovery Pill's medicinal power was too terrifying. Even Zhuowen might explode and die if he took it directly. After all, this primordial providence pill was mainly for heaven-breaking realm cultivators. Its medicinal power was not something a cultivator could bear. Thank you, Lord Zhuo. I understand. Donghuang Taiyi was overjoyed. He took out a jade box from his spirit ring and carefully put the primordial providence pill into the jade box. Boom! Suddenly, an extremely terrifying explosion came from the mountain range in the distance. Then, the explosion slowly dissipated. Lord Zhuo, look over there. There seems to be a path. Donghuang Taiyi looked at the location of the explosion with a surprised expression and couldn't help but ask. Zhuowen stood up and looked at the mountain range. After the explosion in the distance dissipated, the huge mountain range was no longer there. In its place was a purple path that led to the depths of the chaotic starry sky. This path slanted upwards, and there were neat steps on the path. Could it be the primordial path? Zhuowen's pupils constricted. He looked at the seemingly endless path, and his entire body trembled with excitement. He had heard about the primordial path from Shu Yuan and knew that it was the bridge between the lower realm and the 100 territories outside the realm. Any cultivator who succeeded in breaking through the heavens in the lower realm basically followed the primordial path and entered the 100 territories outside the realm. Moreover, he also knew why there was no primordial path in the starry sky. The most important reason was that the starry sky was too young. Until now, there had not been a single heaven-breaking realm cultivator. They were unable to mobilize the primordial providence and the power left behind by the primordial tree in this starry sky to form the primordial path. Isn't it said that the primordial path will only appear in the starry sky where a heaven-breaking realm cultivator has appeared? Why did the primordial path appear in the starry sky in advance? Zhuowen frowned, but he was puzzled. However, he was very clear about one thing. The appearance of the primordial path might be related to him absorbing the primordial providence. Lord Zhuo, what are you doing? That path that suddenly appeared has an unknown origin. It's best if we don't get close. Donghuang Taiyi couldn't help but loudly dissuade Zhuowen when he saw him on the deck suddenly jump out and rush toward the purple path in the distance. Zhuowen ignored Donghuang Taiyi's call. His gaze was blazing. He knew that with the primordial path, he could enter the 100 territories outside the realm in advance. Back then, he had planned to use the golden coffin to drift to the 100 territories outside the realm. Now that he thought about it, this idea was too laughable. The chaotic starry sky was too large, far larger than the primordial tree and the 100 territories outside the realm. Chapter 36-36. Zhuowen landed at the starting point of the primordial path. At the starting point, there was a flat purple road. The road was 100 meters wide and emitted a blazing purple light and an inexplicably powerful pressure. Zhuowen frowned. He did not know why, but he felt a trace of danger on the road. Let's try stepping on it. Zhuowen took a deep breath and stepped on the purple road with his right foot. Boom! Suddenly, a terrifying aura came crashing down on them. Zhuowen's face changed slightly and his body trembled. He circulated the primordial path and his body became hazy with purple light. The originally terrifying pressure receded like the tide. Zhuowen pushed off with his right foot and landed lightly on the road. Could it be because I have cultivated the primordial path? Zhuowen recalled the terrifying pressure he felt when he first stepped onto the road, and a look of understanding appeared in his eyes. Hey! Looks like there is no danger on this road. I was worried for nothing, Master Zhuo. Donghuang Tai also landed on the side of the road. When he saw Zhuowen jumping on the road, he could not help but want to give it a try. However, the moment he landed on the primordial chaos path, he immediately let out a blood-curdling scream and sprawled on the ground, prostrating himself on the ground. F***CK. What's going on? Donghuang Tai spat out a mouthful of blood and his face changed drastically. He felt that his body was being squeezed by a terrifying pressure. His flesh and bones felt like they were being torn apart. I can't take it anymore. Master Zhuo, save me. I'm going to die. Donghuang Tai spat out another mouthful of blood and his eyes were filled with horror. No matter how he tried to summon the energy around him, he was easily crushed by the terrifying power of the primordial path. The energy of the primordial path was much higher than his. His energy was as small as an ant in front of the primordial path. Zhuowen, who was walking in front of the primordial path, also heard Donghuang Tai's scream. He turned his head and saw Donghuang Tai lying on the ground. He was struggling but could not move at all. Zhuowen strode towards Donghuang Tai, lifted him up and leaped off the Hongmeng Dao. Donghuang Tai gasped for breath and struggled to stand up. He thanked Zhuowen, Lord Zhuo, thank you for saving my life. Also, my lord is indeed my lord, to be able to walk on this path with such terrifying pressure. Donghuang Tai sincerely admired Zhuowen. The primordial chaos Dao's oppressive aura was seriously too terrifying. He didn't doubt in the slightest that if he stayed in the primordial path for too long, he would surely perish. Zhuowen had a strange look in his eyes. He seriously sized up the primordial chaos path behind him and revealed a thoughtful expression. It looked like the primordial chaos path had absolute suppression over cultivators below the heaven-crushing realm. Donghuang Tai was an early-stage fifth blight expert after all. The moment he stepped onto the Grand Mist path, he was pressed to the ground, unable to move at all. This was just too ridiculous. Moreover, Zhuowen also recalled the terrifying pressure he felt the moment he stepped onto the primordial path. He knew that if he didn't circulate the primordial chaos technique, his condition might not be any better than Donghuang Tai's. Although his battle prowess was terrifying, his cultivation was indeed below the heaven-crushing realm. Under the terrifying rules of the primordial chaos path, he was completely suppressed. This primordial chaos path is formed from the primordial chaos tree's energy, and I can completely offset the pressure on it by circulating the primordial chaos technique. Looks like the primordial chaos stone and the primordial chaos tree have a lot to do with each other, Zhuowen thought. Zhuowen walked to the side of the primordial chaos path and summoned array flags with his right hand, setting up a teleportation formation beside the primordial chaos path. Although deep in his heart, he yearned to immediately step onto the primordial chaos path and head to the 100 domains outside the realm. However, he knew that he couldn't leave now, and he couldn't leave. There were still many threats in the universe, and he had to eliminate all of them before he could leave with peace of mind. Fellow Daoist Donghuang, let's go. Zhuowen waved his right hand, and Donghuang Taiyi landed lightly on the deck of the flying divine tool. Donghuang Taiyi still hadn't recovered, and the injuries on his body could be said to be extremely serious. Zhuowen landed on the deck, and immediately controlled the flying divine tool to leave this place. That's the primordial chaos path? Damn it, there's actually someone who broke through to the heaven-crushing realm in the universe. At another border of the universe, Gongji Lu and Ni Sai, who were hiding in the dark, saw the purple streak of light that extended into the depths of the chaotic universe, and they were both shocked. Gongji Lu's expression was gloomy, and Ni Sai said in panic, "Senior brother, what should we do? A heaven-crushing realm elite just had to appear in the universe at this time. Isn't this spoiling our plans?" Gongji Lu's eyes flickered, and he said, "The primordial chaos path is a passage that belongs to the beings of the lower realm, and we beings of the 100 domains outside the realm can't enter. It's impossible for us to kill this new heaven-crushing realm cultivator through the primordial chaos path. The only thing we can do now, besides waiting for an opportunity, is wait for the Golden Corner Starry Skies army." Ni Sai said helplessly, "If this heaven-crushing realm cultivator didn't appear, the Golden Corner Starry Skies army would completely crush the Golden Corner Starry Sky, but now I'm afraid the Golden Corner Starry Sky has no chance of winning." Gongji Lu shook his head, and said, "That's not necessarily the case. If it's a peak 5th blight cultivator with a heaven-crushing divine tool, it won't be difficult to kill someone who just broke through to the heaven-crushing realm. Senior brother, could it be that you plan to?" Ni Sai said in surprise. Gongji Lu said, I plan to lend my divine tool to the Golden Corner Starry Skies divine master, and this new heaven-crushing realm cultivator must be killed. Otherwise, we won't have any chance. Junior sister, I know what you're worried about. No matter how bold that Golden Corner Starry Skies divine master is, he won't dare to have any ideas about my divine tool. And even if he really does, I have a way to make him obediently hand over the divine tool. Ni Sai said in a low voice, "I believe senior brother, but we still have to be careful. After all, your divine tool isn't ordinary." Gongji Lu smiled and nodded, and then looked at the chaotic starry sky not far away. That area of the starry sky gradually distorted, and a rotating black hole appeared. From the black hole, a tiger-headed and human-bodied mechanical life slowly walked out. "Are the two of you Lord Gongji Lu and Lord Ni Sai?" The tiger-headed mechanical life saw the two people on the divine ship, knelt on the ground respectfully, and asked with a deep bow, "It's us. Your divine master sent you here, right?" Gongji Lu asked casually. "This lowly one is Hu Lu, a guard by the divine master's side. I've specially come to invite the two of you to the Golden Corner Starry Sky to have a chat with the divine master," the tiger-headed mechanical life said respectfully. "You lead the way." Chapter 36-37. Master Zhuo, are you sure you don't want to stay in the Demon Saint Palace? I can give you the position of Palace Master. You will be in charge of everything in the Demon Saint Palace. In front of the Demon Saint Palace, Donghuang Taiyi stood respectfully in front of Zhuo Wen, begging Zhuo Wen to stay in the Demon Saint Palace. Ever since Donghuang Taiyi obtained the 7 life energy recovery pill from Zhuo Wen, his respect for Zhuo Wen has increased to the point of fanaticism. Now, he is willing to give up the position of Palace Master and respect Zhuo Wen. Zhuo Wen stood on the space-time roulette deck and shook his head. "Your Demon Saint Palace is not suitable for me. I will be staying in Rika in Xianmi Heavenly Domain for a while. This part of the galaxy will not be peaceful soon. You need to improve your cultivation and prepare for the upcoming war." Donghuang Taiyi's eyes became serious and he nodded heavily. Zhuo Wen had already told him about the golden starry sky. Only then did he realize that the starry sky he was in was actually so weak. "If you have any problems, you can come to Xianmi Heavenly Domain to find me. This jade slip records the approximate location of Rika. As long as you have my token, you can enter Rika's territory. Also, help me look out for things that can weaken the Blight Tribulation. These things are very important to me." Zhuo Wen threw the token and jade slip to Donghuang Taiyi, turned into a stream of light and left. About a month later, Zhuowen returned to the valley where Rika's territory is located. This time, Zhuowen came back with Mu Chunxue, and everyone in Rika came out to welcome them. Especially when everyone knew that Mu Chunxue was pregnant, they were very happy. Long Xiaotian and Feng Xiao were the happiest because they finally got a precious grandchild. That night, Rika held a grand banquet. Everyone from Rika attended the banquet to congratulate Mu Chunxue. After the banquet, Zhuowen told Rika about the Golden Corner Starry Sky and told her not to slack off during this time. She should try her best to improve her cultivation and prepare for the final battle. After the crowd dispersed, only Long Xiaotian, Feng Xiao, Lu Hantian, and some other Rika executives and people close to Zhuowen were left in the hall. Oh right, where's Wushang? Zhuowen noticed that Moyan Wushang didn't attend the banquet. This made Zhuowen feel strange, so he couldn't help but ask. Mu Chunxue's beautiful eyes were also filled with doubt. She felt a little strange in her heart. After all, Moyan Wushang was her best friend. How could he not attend such an occasion? It's like this. After you left Rika last time, Wushang closed herself to cultivate. She said that she couldn't be disturbed. This closed-door cultivation is very important to her. If she was disturbed, she would fail. So, even if you came back, I didn't dare to call Wushang for fear of disturbing her, Feng Xiao said with a wry smile. Zhuowen was stunned. Then he shook his head with a wry smile and said, "Why is this girl so desperate? Even if the sky falls, I'll hold it up." Mu Chunxue laughed and said, "My husband, I know Wushang better than you do. Although she looks weak on the surface, she's actually very strong and opinionated. I'm afraid she wants to catch up with you and not be too far behind you." Zhuowen sighed and said with a little emotion in his eyes, "That's right. She doesn't like to be protected. Instead, she likes to protect others." A few days later, a servant knocked on Zhuowen's door. "Master Zhuo, there's a group of people outside the valley. The leader claims to be from the heaven accessing place and is here to see you." Seeing Zhuowen open the door, the servant reported the situation outside the valley to Zhuowen. "Oh, people from the heaven accessing place? Go and invite them to the reception hall," Zhuowen said calmly. The servant's face was ruddy. He took the order and left quickly, as if he wanted to perform as well as possible in front of Zhuowen. Zhuowen was the idol of many young people in Rika, and this servant was no exception. It was an extremely rare opportunity for him to enter Zhuowen's attic and report to Zhuowen in person. He could boast about it to his friends for a year when he went back. In the reception hall, Zhuowen sat on the main seat. The green-haired mummy and crepe myrtle star sat on either side of him. Since Green Hat had submitted to Rika, he had become very powerful. He had become the second most powerful man in Rika, second only to Zhuowen. Therefore, he was treated very well in the Long family. The members of the Long family were very respectful to this person with a terrifying appearance. It could be said that Green Hat lived a very comfortable life in Rika. Fortunately, Green Hat knew who was the real master in Rika, so he was very cautious in his words and did not do anything out of line. After a while, a group of people came in from outside the reception hall. The leader was no stranger to Zhuowen. It was the Black King. In addition to the Black King and the human tribe, he also saw the alien tribe. The leader of the alien tribe was the ancestor of the nine-tailed fox tribe. Master Zhuo. The Black King and the ancestor of the nine-tailed fox tribe knelt on the ground and saluted Zhuowen. Zhuowen nodded, but his eyes fell on a man behind them. The man was tied up and kept twisting and struggling. After asking, Zhuowen learned that the Three Clears Street and the Flood Street had a common enemy because they knew that the Golden Corner Starry Sky was going to invade. Not long ago, the two streets put aside their previous grudges and reached a decision to reconcile. They were going to work together to resist the invasion of the Golden Corner Starry Sky. This time, the Black King and the ancestor of the nine-tailed fox tribe were sent by the sky-accessing place to guard the depths of the natural moat. The Black King and the ancestor of the nine-tailed fox tribe were both fourth blight experts. With such experts guarding the natural moat, if there was any trouble in the depths of the natural moat, it would immediately spread throughout the starry sky. After the two arrived at the Xianmi heavenly domain, they did not go directly to the depths of the natural moat. Instead, they first came to visit Zhuowen. Although Zhuowen did not say anything, in fact, in the hearts of most of the experts in the starry sky, Zhuowen was already the real ruler of the starry sky. And Zhuowen was now staying in the Xianmi heavenly domain. Therefore, when the Black King and the others entered the Xianmi heavenly domain, they naturally did not dare to go to the natural moat without even saying goodbye. Zhuowen was a little speechless. The Black King and the others were too cautious. They just came to the Xianmi heavenly domain and did not even have anything to do, but they still had to come to greet him first. It was too boring. It seems that the battle between Bing Hui and me has completely scared these people out of their wits. He treats me like he's his own father. Zhuowen facepalmed as he thought to himself. If you have nothing to do in the future, you don't have to come to Rika to greet me. You can rest assured that I will not interfere in your affairs, and I will not ask you to do this or that. Zhuowen was speechless. The Black King and the ancestor of the nine-tailed fox tribe looked at each other and bowed respectfully, saying that they understood. By the way, who is this? Zhuowen pointed at the strange man who was imprisoned behind the Black King. The Black King looked at the man and said in a low voice, Lord Zhuo, we do not know this man either. When we got close to the valley, we smelled a strange fragrance. I followed the fragrance and found this man. At that time, this man was not far from the valley and was sneaking around. He even built a temporary cave abode. He was probably spying on Rika. I felt that something was wrong, so I captured him and brought him to you, my lord. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and grabbed at the air with his right hand. The man was caught in Zhuowen's hand. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.